Okay, so it looks like we already have some folks over in the chat. And Long Rider, no, I am not going to Sony. I'm on a mission, man. I'm on a mission to fix Nikon. Now, I know that's going to get some hate mail, but so be it. And I know there are a lot of people that don't care to talk about gear. That's why I think some of these rants I'm going to do impromptu rather than on our regular live streams on Wednesday and on Saturday. So those that want to participate can, and those that don't, I understand. And I also understand that a lot of people are going to disagree with me. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that just happy, you know, happy go lucky. And I think that's fantastic. Let Nikon do what they do and just stand by and wait for however long it takes to get a camera. But I'm not that way. I'm sorry. And you guys know that by now. Anybody that's been a subscriber more than a month knows that I'm not that way. And, what prompted this? Well, the fact that Canon's announced cameras, they've already produced a couple of cameras that are already out in the field, and the R6 II is now in, I guess, development. And the strong rumor that it may be out as early as next month. Sony just dropped the A7R5, and I'll tell you, on paper, it looks like a great camera. Am I going to buy it? No, but it aggravates me when I see everybody out there in the competition dropping things right and left. And again, Nikon doesn't have a full team of cameras right now. We're a one camera team, and that's the Z9. And while I do have a few things to say about the Z9, I own the Z9. So I'm not speaking from a position of, it's all just hearsay. I actually shoot with a Z9. So, the Z9 is the pinnacle right now of the Nikon lineup. And I think it's got some more improvement left in it. And there's already even some slight discussion, I guess. Uh, Tom Hogan has already talked about the possibility of a Z9 update coming sooner rather than later. So that says a lot. And it has a lot to do with what I'm talking about. Um, I Firmware 3.0. Okay. Look, we're going to get into that. I think Saturday night or tomorrow night, we're going to talk about the firmware update. And while it's fantastic that Nikon continues to put out these firmware updates, it says a lot, doesn't it? I mean, if the camera was the all-in-all pinnacle of all cameras, then there wouldn't be any of these updates, adding more features. Now, I'm not opposed to that. Don't get me wrong, but I think Nikon rushed to the scene with the Z9, and while I applaud them for doing such, it, there's a lot left to improve, and they prove that by putting out these firmware updates. And we'll get into that tomorrow night. So this is a rant about where Nikon stands. And I'm going to make a statement right now that's going to get some hate mail. I'll probably lose subscribers. I'm sorry about that. But I've got to be me, folks. And that's just the way it is. Again, I think I'll start doing these real rants on gear and stuff like that. Unless the chat goes there on regular live streams, I'm going to do impromptus. So that said, let's get into it. Nikon is falling behind. There you go. There's the big one. And now I'll get a bajillion questions as to why do I feel that way, and people that will oppose that and say no, they're not falling behind. Well, I beg to differ. So, um, I mean, we've talked about supply issues. We've talked about all kinds of different reasons why Nikon. We've given Nikon every excuse in the world, is what we do. As a Nikon shooter, we're supposed to just be blind mushrooms kept in the dark, and you're just supposed to sit back and enjoy and be happy with what they give you. You can't make any suggestions. You can't complain about what they do. You can't do anything but, bow to Nikon as a Nikon shooter and say, okay, I accept what you're doing. I accept what you've given me, and I don't want any more. Don't get on live stream. Don't get on YouTube as a Nikon shooter and start talking about what could be improved. Oh, no, that's not acceptable. Well, I'm different. I'm not leaving Nikon. I'm going to continue to battle with Nikon. And there are a lot of people out there that do agree with me, but I understand that it's controversial. That's why I didn't send out any invitations for this live stream. If you would like to debate me, and I welcome that, or if you'd like to get in the chat on the panel, just let me know in the stream, and I'll make sure that I get an invitation to you and you can join live. I'm just ready to go. I'm just, and people, Nikon continues to bleed, and nobody believes that. Nobody believes that anybody's leaving Nikon. And that's just blind following, because it is happening. And I've heard it from some of you guys, even talking about, if Nikon doesn't do or whatever, then I'm considering and I'm looking elsewhere. And why would Nikon continue to let that happen? If Nikon is such a small company that they can't keep up with the other competitors, then so be it. All right. I understand. I wish they would just let us all know and we could get on with our business of photography. And that brings up the next comment that I get so often is, what can't you do with the cameras you have? I can do anything I want to do with the cameras I have, but it's so much more convenient with some of the things that we're seeing come out in the other brands. And Nikon right now needs, because this is where the bleeding is, needs follow-up cameras to the Z7 II, Z6 II. That's what everybody's waiting for. And of course, the Z8. And I just watched, uh, I watched Grays of Westminster this morning. I love watching them. I think that Becky and Con do a great job. But I might have a point or two that I disagree with Con on, and that's the Z8 specs and the Z7 specs. Or Z7 III specs. But I'll start right here, and I'm going to look at the comments and go down and welcome everybody in here, and we'll get with it. All right. All right, James, you got to watch the rerun. I get it, man. I understand. And this isn't the most convenient time for a lot of people. However, for the folks that are in Europe, I know that this is a more convenient time because it's after work or, in the evening. So let's get with it. A photo. Good to see you, buddy. And anybody, like I said, anybody that would like to join, just let me know and I'll send a link. Greg Wilson, rant and roll. Yep, rant and roll, man. Christopher Rodriguez, nice to see you, Chuck, and friends. Can't let's see, but I can't with the gear talk anymore. I got that. I understand that. Hope all is well and everyone enjoys the upcoming weekend. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah, I understand. That's why I'm doing an impromptu. A lot of people just can't stand to hear it anymore, but I've got to say what I got to say, what's on my mind. All right. Nikon has fallen behind. I agree with you, Jeff. They have. And I know a lot of people, again, are going to say, no, they haven't, but they have. All right. Uh, nice to see you, Todd. Sandeep, let's see. Forever waiting for Nikon. First time for the first time, have looked at others. There you go. This is what I'm talking about. And people say it isn't so. So I guess a lot of people that send me emails and things are saying that I'm lying and you're lying, Sandeep. You're not going to switch. You won't do it. Well, there are people that are switching, and I'd like to see that stop. Let's see. A photo. Honestly, I would assume all is well without these streams and a few other channels because I never see anything from Nikon. They're like an absent parent. Yes, we're mushrooms. The consumers for Nikon are mushrooms kept in the dark. All right, Rakesh, how you doing, sir? Let's see. There you go. Here's a comment. It's now here's the thing, Jeff. There are other people that are going to, complain, well, you don't need it, or hey, you're just one, just one individual. No, I hear in other forums, I see it in other forums, and everybody's complaining about a lot of different things, wanting this or that. Yeah, I had a great trip, as much as a trip can be, just to fly down and get in a car and turn around and drive right back. Greg. But again, I don't like my wife traveling long distances alone. So that was the reason for the absence over the last day and a half. Let's see. There you go. And I will agree with you, and I haven't even read the comment completely. A7 IV is what the Z6 II should have been. And okay, you're absolutely right. Z6 III needs to come up with the A7R4 by a significant margin. I just don't see it happening anytime soon. Well, that's just it. I get on here and I complain because Nikon doesn't give us anything. Nikon doesn't hint, nothing. And if they have closed or clamped down on their NDAs, I think that's a great thing. But there are things such as development announcements and things that they could do to let us know. And again, to put a band-aid on the bleeding, to stop the bleeding. I'm just, I'm just, I don't know. I'm lost on the Nikon marketing strategy. Well, you all know that. I've been saying that for a long time. Vahagan, I enjoyed your video, Vahagan. That was cool. That's why you are the rock and roll photographer. All right, so let's get into it. Again, everybody's dropping cameras. Nikon not. I've heard some say maybe it's because Nikon wants to make sure that it's a barn burner. The next camera they drop is going to be so fantastic and wanting to make sure it's absolutely uh, right and everything else. Well, I say the Z8's been in production since the Z9, or not in production, in development since the Z9. As a matter of fact, there is some rumor out there and some discussion that people have had about the Z8 was actually on the board before the Z9, and then Nikon decided to go with the Z9. I don't know how true that is, but I have to believe that the Z8 has been on the board since the beginning, or whatever they're going to call it. We keep saying Z8. And oh, by the way, the Z8 is not going to be a D850. The D850 was a wonderful camera. Some people will say the best DSLR built by Nikon. And while that may or may not be true, I don't know. It's up to you and your definition of what the best DSLR Nikon had is. The Z8 doesn't need to be a Nikon D850. And why do I say that? I think because the Z7 III needs to be the Nikon D850. I've got my little chart up here. This goes all the way back to June and my prediction of what the lineup would look like. And if the Z8 is the super high megapixel camera that everybody or a lot of people keep saying it will be, then what is the Z7 III? Where does what space is left for the Z7 III? You know, the Z7 III is going to become the all around camera. Does that make sense? I don't think so. Maybe you do. And I'm open to any discussion about why you believe that, why you believe the Z8 has to be the high megapixel camera, not the all rounder, and the Z7 III needs to be the all arounder because that's the only thing left in that lineup. Z6 III hybrid camera, great entry level prosumer body that does video well, is a great stills camera too. I think that's where the Z6 III sits. The Z7 III, I go back to my chart as a landscape, portrait, commercial photography camera, high megapixel, lower frame rate, still has decent video in it for those that would shoot it. It needs to be an all rounder to some extent itself. And the Z8 is the camera body that everybody wants. I say everybody, the majority. I heard Khan say this morning that Nikon's not going to make the same mistake the D3, D3S, and D700 because it stole from the flagship cameras. We're in a different era, Khan, and while I agree that it may have to some extent back when the D700 was announced, I don't think that's the issue because now people are waiting. They pick and choose. They want a flagship or they don't. And there are a lot of people out there that don't want the flagship style body, the battery grip, built-in battery grip. They want a smaller camera that has at least close to the same potential. It's not taking away. Those that are going to buy a flagship are going to buy a flagship. And oh, by the way, guess what? Nikon has to come out with all three of these bodies that will rival all the features that are in the Z9. I mean, do they hold back? Do they hold back technology? If the Z6 III comes out first and the Z7 III, do they hold back technology, saving it for the Z9 II or Z9S or whatever? Is that what people think, or is that what people want? I don't. I want these new features, this new tech to come out in these bodies that are coming out next. And I want those new bodies to come out sooner rather than later. If Nikon pushes this to next year, how many cameras do you expect to get next year? All three? Z8, Z7 III, Z6 III? I don't. That's why I had said way back when we would get something in October of this year. Well, we did. We got a firmware update for one camera for less than 10% of Nikon's consumer base. It's been it's just continue. We just continue to get new features in it. While I'm not complaining about getting new features and things like that in the Z9, that is less than 10% of the consumers for Nikon. What about the 90+% out here that are stuck in the dark waiting? And everybody's going to say, well, they got the Z6 II. What can't it do? Or the Z6 III or Z6 II. What can't it do? Well, you just ask everybody around you. Ask people in the chat. Let them tell you, because obviously it doesn't do any good for me to speak for them. I think some are speaking up now. And, how long is it before people say, well, enough? I see all the features I want in another brand and I'm going to go. And to those that say, well, let them go, is that really what you want? You want Nikon to continue to lose uh, consumers? What does that do to Nikon? Lost revenue is good. It's okay. You're okay with that. And there are some that would be okay if Nikon stopped making mirrorless cameras. I mean, I just don't. I don't understand. You guys help me understand. Just help me understand. Tell me why I'm wrong because I want to fight for Nikon. All right, looking at the comments now, guys. Let's see. Sorry, you got to bear with me. Wasn't prepared for it. It's just a off, just taking off on a rant. Nikon's listening. They're too busy feeding crickets. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm going to get a lot of hate mail. How could I be a Nikon shooter and talk this way? How is that possible? Should I just shut up about it all and just, go on and blissfully wanting without saying anything about it? Yeah, well, that topic's come up. So there are others that have made that statement talking about they want to make sure this camera's all in all. Okay, I understand that, but how long will a camera be in development before? I mean, tech is changing day by day. I mean, look at all the things that are happening out there in the other brands. That tech's available to Nikon too. Is it Nikon can't develop that kind of tech? Do we really want to go there and say that's the issue? It takes them longer? I don't believe so. I don't know what the issue is, but I'm definitely going to speak up when it comes to the brand that I love. I'm just going to put comments up and read them as I put them up here with you guys. I'm surprised on how many passionate folks out there defending Nikon. Let's see. I made a comment on Matt Irwin's video about the Z9's firmware update and asked where is the updates for the Z. Yeah, that's the other thing. That's become, if you ask that question anywhere, on any forum, anywhere, you're going to get beat up, asking about the Z6 II, Z7 II firmware. So let me ask you a question. Instead of beating everybody up that asked that question, can you give an answer as to why, the Z6 II hasn't gotten any love or the Z7 II hasn't gotten any love? And I'm not talking bug fixes, folks. I mean, the D850 just got a firmware update. Anybody know what's in that firmware update? What new features or new technology or anything that they provided to the D850? You got a bug fix. So even Becky, mentioned this morning for all the people that were complaining about the Z5 not getting any love as far as a firmware update. Well, you got a firmware update. Well, that doesn't answer the question. When we say firmware update, yeah, we like seeing bug fixes. Yeah, absolutely. But, can they do anything else with the camera? Can they update some of the specs in the camera? I don't know. I'm asking the question, but a firmware update to fix bug fixes is great. But I think now we're spoiled to all the firmware updates for the Z9 and all the new features that they're putting into the camera. So I don't know. I'm frustrated, and you guys can tell, I'm sure. We need a marketplace in this forum where we can sell, or in this group where we can sell each other gear. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think that would be cool somehow to come up with that. How you doing, Mar? Mar's happy because both the brands that he loves and holds, dear to his heart continue to drop cameras. And I understand that. Let's see. Z6 III, Jeff talking about it. I do think the Z6 III will or should have 15 to 20 frames per second. I think only having 10 frames per second will create more impression. Nikon just doesn't get it. So let me ask a question here too. Does Nikon possess the ability to put higher frames per second into the Z6 III and the Z7 III? Or is it going to be the Canon Cripple Hammer? Yeah, we could do it, but we're not going to because we don't want it to rival another body that we produce. I don't know if that's 21st century strategy there. Let's see. The last Z6, Z7 firmware update was worthless, I feel. I kind of disagree there, Photo, because I have a Z6 and a Z6 II, and I felt like the AF firmware update in the Z6 was a worthy update, and I feel it's on par with the Z6 II. Now, I'm ready to take some flack for saying that, but I really believe between the two cameras, the autofocus is pretty daggone close. So if that's the case with two processors, XP6 processors, you would think that the Z6 II and Z7 II could see some improvement in autofocus. Well, how much autofocus do you need, Chuck? It's fine for me. That's the other thing. A lot of people only look at it from their perspective. I only shoot macro photography. Well, then I guess you're happy with DSLRs, but don't try to hold back or complain about people that want more. Let's see. John Ishii, light my fire. Yeah, it was pretty cool, John. Vahagen's on it, man. Norbert, everything has an end. It's time for Nikon to. Is that I'm give way? I don't know, Norbert. Sorry. Let's see. You guys will hear some background noise because the house is bustling this morning. I couldn't shut everything down just so I could get on here and talk. Let's see. I'm just going to pull the comments up as I go through them here. Nikon's upgrade path goes too fast. Every 2 years, a new body, while Canon's EOS R Classic lasts 5 years. Well, you know what? Stop and think about what you're saying. If you come out with the right specs in a camera and it performs, maybe you don't have to upgrade so often. So what am I saying? Am I saying Nikon didn't? Well, the Canon R5 is a hot selling camera, and all jokes aside, well, they've even overcome the overheating in that camera. Let's face it, man. It's a great camera, and Nikon needs a response to that. They've needed a response to that. So right now, below the Z9, what do you have? Everybody's holding out. The only reason people are buying Z6 IIs, Z7 IIs, because they're being heavily discounted by Nikon. Now, why is Nikon doing that? And they've been doing it for the last 6 months. Oh, man. Let's see. John Ishii, Poland just said 3.0 has failed. You know, I rarely will I ever agree with anything Jared Polin says, and I'm not agreeing that it's failed. But again, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I got a Z9. I haven't updated the firmware yet. Of course, I will. But I tell you, everything that I saw in that firmware update, the only thing that interested me was better low light focus, and I think being able to choose ambient light or see your ambient light in in camera when you attach a controller, a light controller, or a put a speed light on there. That's the only thing I'm interested in. I'll be curious tomorrow night to go through the list with everybody and see how everybody else feels about the firmware update. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't get it either, Vahagan. I don't understand how anybody, in the Nikon camp could say, well, let people leave. I mean, is that a wise marketing decision? Is that what Nikon's saying? Well, let people go. Let them go to the other brands. I'm sorry, I'm missing something. Oh man. Uh, yeah, this is a good time to buy, cameras from Nikon. If you're into, if the Z6 II suits everything, suits all your needs, and the Z7 II suits all your needs, by all means, this is the time to buy. So is that the Nikon strategy? Just let them produce new cameras when they, down the road, and we'll just wait and not buy the new cameras, but buy them when they're discounted, 2 years later. I don't know. I don't know. Light the fire truck, a photo. Uh, let's see. Let's see. Just looking, I finally got to the bottom. How much improvement happened in the Nikon 3.0? I don't know, Rakesh. And I'm interested in that because I'm one that, you know, contrary to all the raving about how great the AF is in low light, I'm still not seeing it. All right. It's good, but I know blasphemy to say that. So I'm curious about that myself, Rakesh. Um, Wait a minute. Where'd it go? That's not the one. There you go. All right, Jeff. Red lawsuit. Let's see. Pull pull the parts out. Disable that software and turn it back. Turn it back on once the lawsuit's settled. Nikon is losing sales not due to video raw, but lack of interesting products. Yes, I agree. I agree, Jeff. And the whole red lawsuit, everybody assumes that that's going to be done here in a few months. So Nikon's waiting. That's another excuse I've seen over in the forums is, well, Nikon's waiting to see how the red lawsuit goes. Okay, folks, if that's the case, they're not going to produce another camera for another 3 or 4 years. Does anybody believe that lawsuit's going to uh, be finalized, or Nikon is going to drop the suit, or Red's going to drop the suit, or Nikon's going to have to pay for use of Red? If any of that's true, you know, don't wait for that lawsuit to be finalized. Forget about that, or solved, or resolved, because that's 3 or 4 years down the road. It's not going to happen overnight. And if Nikon's waiting to see how that's going to go before they produce another camera, well, get in for the long haul. Get ready for the long haul. But the other thing is that uh, just don't enable these new cameras yet with that in raw. Just it's that simple, and then add it later in a firmware update. If the suit is settled uh, in favor of Nikon, but get off the pot. And we haven't even talked about lenses. The 2 to 600 been on the roadmap since the beginning. Probably one of the largest selling telephoto lenses that Nikon's going to sell, and we're still getting crickets. We haven't heard anything. I mean, come on, where's the marketing, folks? What is Nikon up to? I'm just at a loss and I'm rambling on, I know. But if, somebody could explain it to me in a way that that made sense, then maybe I would shut up about it. But oh, let's see. I had the Z6, currently using the Z6 II and Z7 II, considering the Z9, but going to hold off to see what Nikon is going to release. What I'm looking for is a versatile camera with a small form factor. Amen, George. Amen. And that's what everybody's doing. And some people are getting to the point where they're not going to wait anymore. You get Sony dropping this A7R5. I don't care what anybody says. You can hate Sony all you want, but looking at it on paper, it looks pretty daggone good. All right. And it would be appealing to a lot of, if that was the Z7 III, the same specs, everybody would be talking about how great it is. Tell me I'm wrong. And everybody would be talking about upgrading their Z6 or Z7 II to the Z7 III if that were the case. Let's at least be honest with ourselves. We can hate other brands if you want, but that doesn't mean that their cameras are no good. Ay, 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 ay. Yeah, corporate lawsuits like this drag on for years. Yeah, exactly, Jeff. So take that off the table. That's no longer an excuse for them not putting out a new body. Uh, let's see. BAS or BAS. What if I told you I, as a Canon shooter, 5 bodies, 25 lenses, haven't bought any new RF camera yet the last years? Okay. Would that count as leaving the Canon camp? No, because it's the same thing over in the Nikon camp. And, Sony can't speak to that because they've been mirrorless from the beginning. But there are a lot of people that are holding on to their DSLRs and for a lot of reasons. And we talked about this early on. A lot of pros didn't buy the Z9. Why? They were happy where they were, and they're waiting for the mirrorless lineup to get even more robust. And that's fine. I don't think that's leaving the brand to say that I'm not updating everything. But when the masses, the consumers are asking for it, does Nikon say no? You got what you need. It's okay, and we'll get to you when we're ready. But again, back to brands. No, I think that's fine. I think in the Nikon camp, a lot of people did that as well. But there have probably been more people begin to transition from uh, DSLRs to mirrorless, but it's been slower, I think, than usual. And I think maybe that was Nikon's attempt with the Z9, was to tempt away some of the pros from the D5, D6, or even D4. There's still plenty of those out there. And yes, they still shoot fine. They do a great job. I will agree. But that doesn't mean other people should be held back because some people enjoy their DSLRs and don't want any mirrorless camera. All right. All right. Well, Omar, I'll send you the link, but what I don't need is going on and on about how great Canon and Sony are. I know what they're producing, and they are producing great cameras, but I don't think anybody here is going to talk us, into jumping ship today. I'd rather bash Nikon about what they're doing and keeping us that are here and try to get that fixed. Yeah, passion is sometimes confused with anger, and sometimes you can have passionate anger as well. And I guess that's the group I fall into. But yet, again, I don't know. Again, that's why I'm doing the impromptu, guys. It's very passionate to me, and I can keep people happy in the regular streams because we can talk about photography and all the other things. But I am passionate about this. I'm a passionate Nikon shooter, and that begs the question: why, when I complain so much? Well, I didn't complain with DSLRs. It seems like we were on the right track there. But since we've completely moved away, into a new realm of camera, and I would like to continue to transition into this new realm of camera, and I want Nikon to catch up. I understand they can't do it overnight, and I understand the argument it took Sony so many years, blah, blah, blah. But with technology developing as quickly as it is now, it seems like we could move a little quicker. Uh, let's see. Chuck, I don't consider switching to a different brand jumping ship. It is the consumer buying what they want or need, what product best meets the cost and features criteria. I agree with you 100%, which is why when Bayou Josh decided to, jump on Sony and everybody was in the hate mode, that's fine. He bought what he considered right for him. And I don't see any problem with people doing that. My problem is does Nikon provide enough competition to keep people from considering other brands? I think that's where we're at. Um, uh, let's see. How about you skip one generation Z6 III, Z7 III, and set aside a little budget for a second camera system for you, Chuck? Boss, no, somebody's got to be the voice out here, and it's going to be me, I guess, because I'm going to continue to push Nikon. Am I pushing a truck uphill here? Maybe so, but it's my passion and it's what I want to do. I Right now I don't have any desire to go to another brand. I want Nikon to catch up. That's what I want. And why do I feel this way? I don't know. I just do. And I hope everybody will allow me to be that way. That's again why I'm going to the impromptu to do this instead of doing it on the normal streams. That way people can join if they like, they can disagree or agree with me, or, uh, or just wait for our regular stream to talk all the photography things that we normally talk about. And somebody, I saw another comment up here I want to find real quick. Um, 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 um. Uh, let's see. Let's see. Sorry, I'm looking for the comment. I saw it. I was running my yap and didn't get to it quick enough. Um, yeah, Long Rider, that's absolutely true. Everybody in their brand is probably not completely happy. There's something more they want or whatever. I get that. But just because there aren't people in those brands that are as vocal as I am about Nikon doesn't mean that I think maybe they are fairly. Let me ask you this: how many people? And I know there are a few. How many people have you heard of lately jumping from Sony to Nikon or from Canon to Nikon? There are a few, but I think there are a whole lot more going the other way. I think, right? And what stats do I have to prove that? Just based on reading comments, which I do constantly, not just my own, but reading comments in all the forums and everywhere else. Let's see. Um, 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 um. Oh, here you go. Photography discourse. Thanks for being in here, man. I'm watching your videos and enjoying your videos. And I may be more passionate. Maybe I speak what's on my mind, and that aggravates people. I don't know, but I know that you yourself have wondered about what Nikon is up to. Um, so you, and this is great. Nikon is fine. You're right. Nikon is fine. Third place, maybe that's where they want to be, and they just want to continue to stroll along. Okay, that's fine. Put that out. Let us know, Nikon, because then we may make some decisions. Because there are those of us that will continue to buy cameras, and I know that's wrong. I don't know why it's wrong, but that's wrong. I get that all the time. Are you just a gear nut? Suffering from gas? Yes, I am. And there are a lot of people like me, just not as vocal as I am, maybe. But anyway, they'll be releasing a lot of product next year, probably an FX camera Q1. It will be state of the art. Okay. So we're going to get one more camera. I mean, I'm not picking on you, man. I'm just making this a point. We're going to get one more camera next year. So we have a two camera lineup because I don't consider the Z6 II and and Z7 II in the lineup anymore. I don't know. Maybe already everybody else does, but they're not competing with the competition. And we need to compete with the competition. Why? Why do we need to do that? R&D money and everything else. And what company decides that, you know what, we're just gonna take a hit on this? What does that say about a company that's willing to let people decide to leave or not buy what's being offered? I'm sorry, I'm missing the whole point on that. So one camera next year in Q1, and you know what? I'm not picking on you because I know a lot of people are saying that. As a matter of fact, there was rumor just a few weeks ago about Nikon may not release a Z8 until March of next year. So I don't get it. I'm missing it. I'm sorry. Okay, okay. Let me jump over and send some. Let me jump over and send some invitations out real quick, folks. I'll be right back. Well, I'm still here, obviously, but uh, um, I didn't see anybody else that wanted to get in here, but I will send this anyway. Uh, all right, send out a few. Okay. Yeah, you know what, and I want to say this too. As far as subscriptions go, I'm willing to take a hit. That sounds terrible, but again, guys, I am genuine. Okay, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna throw up clickbait titles. I'm not gonna pander and to every little thing. Uh, I understand this may bother some people, but you if you meet me in real life, this is what you get. Okay, I'm just going to continue to be honest. I'm going to speak my mind, and I understand that some people don't want to hear it and don't like it, and they're going to move on or whatever. But don't confuse this with our community at AP Studios. We do have a good time over there. We always have a good time, except for I guess when I go on a rant, and that's why I choose to do it now impromptu. That doesn't mean that there won't be minor rants that go on during the live streams. Of course, there will, but I'm going to try to keep all the gear and ranting about what's coming next from Nikon and everything in an impromptu fashion. All right. Thanks, Bob, and good to see you, man. Appreciate it. Bob's a great guy. He's out in California. We work together out in Salt Lake City. Good guy. Um, okay, so I've sent you guys some invitations for those that want to join. Anybody else that would like to join, I'm happy to bring you in as well. Uh, yeah, I'm glad you put that up there. Put that in the chat. Hey, everybody, go over and check out Photography Discourse. He's a Nikon shooter. Unlike me, he's a professional. He's shooting. It's his living. But go over there and check him out. And Baron, I really appreciate what you've been doing on your channel there. Uh, yeah. Uh, yeah, Timothy. When will they announce the D500 equivalent? I had speculated earlier this year when we got the announcement for the Z30, and I got beat up because I didn't want them to announce or produce a Z30 at the time. I thought, hey, that production capability could be used for, some of the cameras that everybody's really wanting. And I'm not going to deny the Z30 is, a decent camera or whatever for what it's aimed at. Huff, hang on just a second. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So yeah, when is that Pro Body DX going to come out? And I got to tell you, I got to be honest again. I'm always going to be honest with you, man. Uh, I think it's important that they get a Pro Body DX camera out, but right now we need the Z6 III, Z7 III, and Z8. One of those three at least this year. This year. And let me ask a question. How many people would buy? Let me jump here real quick. How many people would buy um, right now would buy a Z6 III or a Z7 III with the specs that you see on the screen? How many people are waiting for that either one of those cameras and would buy if it was announced?
I'm waiting for you to drop your prices, Chuck.
Well, yeah, yeah. But there's a price point for everybody.
The
And I
no,
think
I
we
agree. And
I think we
that
got pretty
Z6,
close on these prices though. Yeah, not everyone wants
yeah.
a Z9. You're absolutely right. But we need another full
Hmm.
frame camera in the lineup right
See,
now.
the me personally, the Z6 III, according to these stats, the Z6 III for me would be more appealing than the Z7 and the Z8, and not because of the price, but because honestly of that megapixel. I had the D810, and with the 36 megapixel, that I mean, it was a great sensor, but that file size versus the file size of what I'm getting from the Z6, um, my computer that I have seems to handle it so much better, and I still get everything out of it that I need.
Yep.
Um, that's one thing that the giant megapixel cameras just have never really spoke to me. Now that's just because I shoot a lot of portrait and stuff like that. I'm not a landscape photographer. I would imagine if I shot something different, it would make a different. And that being said, having that ability to crop that 45 megapixel sensor if needed, I mean,
All right.
hmm,
So, yeah, look, people want a DX Pro Body DX camera, and we've discussed that quite often about why not just buy a full frame and shoot in DX mode. Evidently, there is, and I can't speak to this. I, I don't. The bottom line is, people want a DX camera. Period.
do they? I mean, that's what. Since I went to full frame, shooting DX just drives me insane. And maybe it's just me. I don't like it. I really love shooting full frame, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Baron. But I don't see Nikon putting out 2 to 4 cameras next year. If they could have done it next year, I think they had the ability to do it this year. And okay, all this ranting that I'm doing right now, and nothing says Nikon won't surprise us even next month or even before the end of this month. A few days away, or a couple of days away, uh, but so that is a possibility. And I truly believe that they need to get another body out this year. Um, I don't know if their production capability is strong enough for 2 or 3 bodies next year. And if it is, again, I go back to why are we waiting now? And I know everybody will
Um,
say, well, development and blah blah blah.
right.
Anybody that thinks they're only developing one camera at a time. And
Oh, that'd be bad.
yeah, yeah. So
Somebody mentioned in the comments there, I think it was Bass, talking about being excited for a Nikon point shoot. I remember back in the day when they had that little Nikon, I can't remember the name of it, but I always wanted one of those. I saw the images people were creating and have it as just like a little travel body. But now, honestly, with the Z30, I don't. I feel like it's so intuitive. It feels like a point and shoot.
I don't think point and shoots are in the market for anybody now. I mean,
Yeah, I think
let's
it's
face
kind
it,
of dying. Oh,
camera
yeah.
phones have stolen
Yep. There you
that
go.
segment. It
Yep.
doesn't mean that there aren't a few people that want it, and I understand that. But that's like going to the DF, camera. The DF was such a cool camera. A lot of people liked it, but uh, I'm not sure it sold extremely well.
I
It was,
almost bought one just for the design of it. I loved how it looked, and
yeah,
I thought it especially. And Vahagan, I was watching some of your videos the other day, and when you put up at the bottom of the
okay.
screen that it was being filmed with a Z50, it blew my mind. That video looked amazing to be coming from the little that crop sensor camera. I couldn't believe it. It was actually that video, and you
Thanks,
put on
Jeff.
there that it was filmed with a 35 millimeter 1.8 Z lens. That video actually gave me the final push to dump all my non Z glass, and I'm switching to all Z glass.
Yeah, thanks, Timothy. And that's just it. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people, I've got a platform and I'm going to use it. And I'm passionate. I'm passionate about Nikon, and I want to continue to, push Nikon. Is my little channel pushing Nikon? No, but you know what? At least people maybe that happen to come by begin to think about. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. What
Yeah,
is
see, that's
going
why
on
I
here?
appreciate it. It pushes me because it
Yeah.
makes me think about things I didn't even think about.
All right, Mark,
Well,
jump
Chuck,
on, jump on in here, man.
I'm gonna get my seatbelt.
what I love is this passion of yours, man. You
Well,
know,
I appreciate that.
it's awesome. It's very contagious, and it's like I was talking to Hagen for what 3 4 days now, nonstop, and
Yeah,
he's like, "Damn, what are you doing?" I'm like, Hagen,
Moss, man.
I got the money, man. Where's the camera? So I made the video, and then he made a song, and I'm like, I'm stealing that song. I'm putting the Indian drums
That's,
back here on that
there you
song
go.
and put it on my channel too. So
You
if
betcha.
Nikon
oh
still don't
man.
listen, maybe they can use that for the marketing video. What do you think? Well, Hagen will split the money, man, if they ever pay us. But no
That was so
joking.
awesome.
All joking aside, I sold one of my other cameras today. Can't mention the brand on here. It's not Nikon, but I sold
No,
it.
I don't care. You
No,
sold a
I'm just
camera.
kidding.
You sold.
I'm
Yeah,
just
go
kidding.
ahead.
But I'm ready, Chuck. I'm not kidding. I wasn't kidding when I said, I have 3,800 bucks in my hand. What do you
Yep.
got, Nikon? And I'm just sitting there looking nothing, and absolutely nothing. And then I was talking to you about the Z7 II and the
Yeah.
Z7. I mean, they got Z7 selling for 1,200 bucks. I mean, that's a steal for a 45 megapixel camera. I
Yeah.
mean, that's happening on eBay today. So, you can
Yeah.
get some great deals. I think it
Yeah.
probably won't be as fast as some of the newer ones, but I think it's a good value.
Yeah.
But you're right. We need some cameras for sure because
Z
I was
Wave.
not kidding. I'm not really getting this camera to become a Nikon ambassador or something. That's not the goal. The goal
Yeah.
is really all of you people that are here on this chat window, like Bass and all these people. They've
Yeah.
been on my channel for I don't even know how long, since 2014, 2015. Um, and these people, some of them actually do shoot, or actually a lot of them shoot Nikon, but they just still
Yeah.
come to my channel, and I'm like, they say stuff, and I just deer in headlights. It's like, what are they saying? And because I don't have an Nikon, so I can't really go into the menu and check out what they mean.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to, relate to relate to them because that's what happened with my Sony people because they would come over there and they're like, "This is really frustrating. This, that, and the other." And I'm sitting there going, I checked out the new menu system they built, and it's actually I like the old one better now because they added too much into the new one. Now it's getting so confusing onto back to that whole thing. But not to bring them up, I really think Nikon needs to actually make a statement at this point, and with that, not just a camera body, but more lenses that are made by them, not like
Well,
camera.
I can't fault them on the lens side. They're doing a good job, except for you know, a, they prioritized lenses that aren't big sellers.
Hmm.
And again, I go back to the 2 to 600. Am I interested in that lens? No, I'm not buying that lens. But I feel for everybody that
They're
is
gonna
waiting
sell
for
the
that.
heck out of it. They're gonna sell the
Yeah,
heck
yeah.
out of
So
it.
again, it's like again, I go back to my Dunkin' Donuts the deal. An analogy or experience. I go to Dunkin' Donuts. I go in the drive-through. I ask for certain donuts. No, we don't have any. Well, what do you have? Well, we got whatever. These. raspberry fritter donuts or whatever. How many of those you have? Oh, we got a lot of them. Okay. I go back the next night or a couple of days later. I ask for my donut. And no, we're out of those. Been sold out most of the day. Well, what do you have? Well, we got the raspberry fritters. You can get a dozen of those. Well, you ever stop and think that maybe it would be a good idea to make more chocolate donuts because they sell out early and you're throwing away the raspberry fritters, make fewer of them? I mean, it's just money making 101. I'm throwing away this because I make so many of them and I never have enough of these to sell through the day. Well, again, a Nikon, you know, you're
See,
going
and
to
that
sell
analogy
tons.
makes sense to me, Chuck, because I used to be in manufacturing and I knew that I had one item that sold 10 times the other items. And
Yeah.
if I would have stocked up the other ones 10 times more than that one, that would have just made no sense. So that's exactly, yeah.
Right.
How you doing, buddy?
Z-Wade.
How you doing, Zach?
Zach, you gotta do a dance
Where
for us
you
on
where you
Mahogany.
going, Long Rider? Hang on, man. I love having you in here too.
You said
Yeah,
not to
wait.
talk about Tony, man.
I came
Well,
here for She-Wade's music
well,
video. I thought that was going to be released today.
That's good. She waits.
um,
No, we're just joking, Chuck. Seriously, I'm not kidding. I am really on the prowl for something Nikon because James actually pinged me yesterday. We're heading to the dam. I think on the 11th. We're planning to go there. He has the MacDep adapter that Moots already sent him.
yep,
So we're going to head over there and pop it on his Z9. He's going to try the R7. We're going to shoot side by side,
cool.
and we're going to go do lunch together. So
That's cool.
No,
look
it's
at that.
great.
That's
I,
You
cool.
I,
know,
dro- I drove by your house yesterday.
did you?
Yep.
Then why didn't you come in?
I didn't literally drive by your house, but I went through Maryland yesterday on the way back up. Took
Oh, you
95
should
back up.
have called me. We could have met up.
Yeah, no, I was in a hurry to get back. 10
Okay.
hours in the car was enough.
Yeah, awesome. No, we're gonna go do that. So pretty soon here. I think the Z5 is $999 right now,
Yeah.
which
Yep.
is a
And
steal for a full frame.
today's the last day for 24 months with no interest at Nikon.com.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I haven't seen that in a while from Nikon.
I
I know.
actually got my Z30 on it last month.
Did
Yeah.
you? Did you pay it off yet?
It's halfway paid off.
See, I'd rather pay it off because it was like James Roddy was actually like, "Hey man, you can get the 600 f4 Nikon." I'm like, "Dude, stop talking all this stuff because you probably will make me do it."
Moz man, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Why sell a 2 to 600 right now when you don't have a body that's competitive for birds without spending $5,500?
Mm.
Great point, man. Absolutely great point. I mean, not that people wouldn't buy it for their Z6 II or Z7 II or whatever right now, but you're absolutely right. Everybody's waiting for these follow on full frame cameras to be competitive with everybody else.
Right.
Just like I said, pick one of the cameras on the screen right now. Who wouldn't buy that? You telling me people don't care? They're happy. They don't want that. Everybody's happy. They could go another 2 years without any of these 3 cameras coming out. I'm not, but evidently everybody should be. And that's what people that don't want them, they will berate you for wanting one of these cameras. No,
Well,
Nikon's fine the way they are. No, they're fine for you, but don't complain about people that want something different.
right.
And guess what? Different comes in another brand too.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you drove a certain model car and you were like, "Oh, I can't wait for the new model car," and then your car manufacturer that you love skipped a year making cars, how much sense would that make? You'd be like, "Where are you?"
If you pay attention, right, the life cycle of a product, right, product life
Mhm.
cycle. Today, the sensor technology and camera technology that's coming out is literally only good the lifespan 2 years.
Hmm.
After 2 years, it's pretty much outdated forever. I mean, it's going to be so far behind. After 6 months, it's already behind. After 12 months, it's like old news, you know? And after 2 years, it's like it's almost at the end of its life because technology has advanced so much to what you were saying earlier, Chuck.
Yeah.
Same,
Well,
same thing with cars. When you
yeah.
look at the leases on cars, have you realized the lease on a car is not 10 years?
No, it's
It's
like
2 years,
Yeah,
3
2 or 3.
years,
Yeah.
4 years at the most. And if you do 5 years, you're going to pay a serious penalty for 5 years because that car is outdated at that time. That's why they do that, right? So, having said that, what you have up on the screen, Z6, Z7 are what? How 2.5 years old now? 3 years old?
2 years old.
3 years old. They're outdated. They're done.
Wow.
They're at the end of their production life, and they were fantastic cameras when they were introduced. But in those 3 years, other brands have already made so much advancement. So,
Bye, Todd. Good to see you in here, man.
but it wasn't like that in the DSLR day. In the
Uh,
DSLR day,
no,
we were
no,
accustomed to the 4 to 5 years.
that's the other thing. People can't, nothing's changed since film days, right?
Right,
Nothing's
right,
changed.
exactly.
Wrong. We're in a different era.
Yeah,
So everybody that says, well, in with DSLR, blah blah blah, don't care. There's competition out here now,
right.
and
That's right.
you've got to compete. Is Nikon going to die? No, they're not. But they're really ticking me off.
I'm literally saying in my videos, take my money, give me a camera, and they
Yeah.
have nothing. And I was talking to Hagen yesterday. He's like, there's an R5. I'm getting a hell of a deal. Should I buy it? And I don't mean the Ace Sony. I mean it was the Canon R5. Should I buy it again? Should I buy it again? He goes, just wait a little bit. Maybe you should pull the trigger. And we were back and forth.
Hey,
And
Jonas, I don't believe you, man, because everybody tells me nobody's leaving Nikon. Of course, I'm kidding, man. And you know what? Good on you. You went and found the camera that works for you. Now everybody will argue and say, well, it's not as good as this and as that. It doesn't matter. You found one that you feel like suits your purposes. Why? Because, well, Nikon only has the Z9.
And they have the 200 to 600 with the A9. That's the difference.
Yeah, but again, and there are more people out there that have done this than anybody wants to believe. It's like, no, it didn't happen. No. Here you go. Here's Nikon consumers. All the no.
Jeffrey is very concerned about Chuck's health in the comments.
No, this is what keeps me alive. Hey, Jeff,
That's why I came on, Chuck, because I've never seen this side of you before.
no, Jeff, you got to understand. This is what keeps me alive when I'm not ranting. Is when I'm at chance of
And I don't see M&Ms over there. Something's wrong, Chuck.
I'm out.
Oh, that's what's wrong. He's hangry.
Yeah,
You're
hangry,
not.
you
When you're
I've
hungry.
been hangry since yesterday. Ask Vahagan. I was talking to him while I was in the airport. I was in Atlanta.
Oh, you told me
ranting.
about that one, yeah.
Yeah, I just couldn't. I just couldn't go live or whatever. And then yesterday, I chose not to watch YouTube while my wife was driving because I knew it would just set me off. And road rage and Nikon rage are not two things to combine.
So, Chuck, did you stay in your seat the whole time on the airplane?
Do what?
Did you stay in your seat the whole time in the airplane?
Oh,
You didn't
yeah.
get out, right?
Well, I've flown so much over my lifetime that airplanes put me to sleep. I go
I know, but
immediately.
Nikon's never upset you like what you went through into an airplane like that in the past.
Yeah, well, this is true, but I don't know.
I'm just giving you.
I told Vahagan yesterday, I said, it's a good thing that I'm actually traveling, going down to pick my wife up and come back because I need a chance to actually settle down. A rant yesterday, if this one's bad, a rant yesterday would have wiped out all my subscribers. My channel would be over because I was on fire, man. I mean,
I know
I was
we're
on
trying
fire.
to get into
I was so
Instead, he jumped on my video, the only person on my live stream yesterday.
I did. Yeah. Huff had one viewer yesterday, me, and I was aggravating him.
The comments were just going like this. I was like, how is this happening? Only Chuck's in here.
I was teaching him how to stream. I said, now you know how it is to stay on
I learned
topic
a
when
lot
everybody's.
Look at
yesterday.
Mothman's I'm surprised TSA didn't keep Chuck from flying.
Yeah, they took my knife away from me.
There
Oh
was a
God.
Nikon alert.
uh,
Oh
oh
man.
man, I'll tell you.
This is epic. Chuck, we are worried about you, man.
I appreciate that. I
You know?
appreciate that. Worry about me when I'm not complaining. Okay, that's what you need to worry about.
Well, if you don't complain, then there'll be no excitement in life, right?
There you go.
Because if they build you a perfect camera, then they don't
There
need
you go.
like
This is a
Yeah.
great opportunity for me to explain, boss. I'm not missing anything in my Z9 right now. Nothing. It does everything I do. Honestly, it does.
Mm.
But
I think some people don't get the point. It's not our cameras; it's Nikon themselves that is
But-
more concerning. Yeah.
but boss, you know, is everybody else happy with their Z6 II and Z7 II? No, they're not. You saw the answer.
They're
I
dumping
asked
them.
people, would they buy it? How many people would buy a Z with these specs up here?
Mhm.
This is new tech up here. This is not what's in the cameras. How many
Mhm.
people would buy that today? Any one of the three.
I
That's
would
what
already
I'm
have
talking
that
about, boss.
Z6 II or the Z7 II
And
already.
there are people that are waiting for these specs, boss. They're waiting for these specs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're beginning to move away from Nikon because Nikon isn't giving it to them. Well, and again, please don't be one of those and say, well, you know, let them go. I'm absolutely certain nobody at Nikon is saying, yeah, we're okay with that.
Jeffrey.
Chuck, am I only the craziest one here that's looking, shooting Sony and Canon and looking at buying something Nikon?
No, there are
Going the other way?
a lot of people that do that. And those multi-brand shooters, you know, I applaud you. Great. I'm not one of them. One, I can't afford to do that. And even if I could, I don't. Yeah, you know what? If I won the lottery, I'd just get on B&H and say, send me everything you've got Sony, everything you got Canon, everything you've got Nikon. Well, that would be a small shipment, but
I posted my video yesterday on Nikon Z mirrorless, the page. Man, you should read some of those comments, and people are like, they're very passionate about the brand, which is awesome. But you know, I got people. Oh, the colors are the best, right? You know, no matter what Nikon you get, and it's always the photographer, not the camera, and this and that and the other. You know, and I'm like, that's all nice. They all sound good. You guys are not listening. I got almost $4,000 here. Take my money, give me a camera, just like Jeff said in his comment here.
Right.
What do you got? And when I look at Nikon and when I look at really the resale of their cameras, I mean, like an R5 right now, you can't get that thing like for less than like couple hundred less than brand new right now. It's not like half. I mean, they have Z7 IIs closing for like 1900. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow.
yeah.
Oh, thanks,
So
Jeff and
people
Leslie.
People are starting to dump them.
Yeah. Jeffrey's pulling my chain right now, man. Rant number 2. Only NPS members will be able to order it for the first 2 months. Yeah.
If you move to England, you might get it faster.
Yeah. Well, what faster?
Hey, Amrit is actually a Sony user. Awesome.
Yeah, man. Hey, you know, you're welcome in here. Everybody's welcome in here if you want to hear somebody rant about Nikon. But seriously, I don't care what anybody shoots. That's fine. I'm just fighting for the brand that I love, and I want them to get off the pot and get something out right now. I want it right now. I'm a petulant child. Okay. Before anybody throws that in a comment, I'm just going to, you know, beat everybody to the punch. I'm a petulant child. I've been called that over on Nikon Rumors many times. I actually begin to like it. I am a petulant child.
All right. So one guy comment, you're going to love this comment, Chuck. It's a need versus want. One guy goes, you need to decide first which camera, you want the camera or the specs. If you're looking for specs, Nikon's not it for you.
Yeah. Well,
so that's to my video on Facebook. He commented.
Yeah.
I'm back from India. What do you have to say about that one? I'm trying to buy a Nikon. The guy's telling me that, if you're looking for specs, don't come here. And you got specs up here on the screen.
Well, what can I say? Honestly, what can I say?
I just find it hysterical, man.
Yeah.
But I honestly think if you pick up a Z5 right now for $999, you can't go wrong. I mean, you still get at least $700 for the damn thing at least a year from now, right?
Yeah.
And you use it, have some fun with it, and that's why I'm leaning towards. I
Yeah,
think my local
and-
Best Buy has it. I might just go get it.
Yeah, and and I meet a lot of I get a lot of comments about well, you wouldn't recommend a Z6 or a Z62 or Z7 or Z72. It depends on what people are looking for. But if somebody's wanting the latest tech, if they see the Z9 and think, well, I want to get, no, then I can't recommend those cameras. And a lot of people are waiting right now.
Right.
And they're asking the question, I really want, what new tech is out there, but how long do I have to wait? Should I buy a Z62 at this price right now, or should I wait? I can't answer that anymore.
Oh my God! Look at what Rakesh just posted. $799 on Nikon USA site.
I might have to get that for my second shooter.
Hey, that don't qualify for the 24-month free.
That's true. Never mind.
I did read the fine lines on that one. I think it doesn't qualify for refurb, but I am going to Nikon USA now. Refurb.
Yeah,
I buy refurbished gear all the time. I've had good luck with it.
I
buy
buy
specs, buy a Z9. Yeah, that's just it.
Canon one, sorry.
And that's the only one that has specs. So there you have it.
I like refurbished stuff. That's why I buy cars that have already been wrecked. Everything's been worked out already.
Well, that's a good idea. Okay, here we go.
I've owned one car that has never been wrecked. I buy cars that have rebuilt titles because they've been rebuilt by somebody, and they I'm driving a Nissan Versa with 280,000 miles on it right now.
Yeah, and that's what my rant is all about. Is Nikon isn't competitive right now, and the Z9 does not count. The Z9 sold more flagship bodies than probably any DSLR flagship, at least up to this point in its lifespan. But it only sold more, I think, because it's $1,000 cheaper, which nobody expected except for Vahagan and I were harping on. I think that might be cheaper, but anyway, because it was in at a reasonable price point that some people were willing to push over their budget to get it because of the specs that were in the Z9 when it was announced. But Z9 sales are pretty much over now. Got news for you. That's why it's catching up right now. And, the only reason it continues to sell at all is why? Nikon doesn't have another camera like it in the lineup. So those that want those specs either have to, bite the bullet and buy a Z9, even though they don't want the full grip body, but they want the specs in it. And it's just time for Nikon. How long can they milk that cow? That cow's going dry quick. But yeah, man, we're all waiting for the Z8 II Amrit, and it's nice to hear somebody say that they would actually leave another brand for that camera. That speaks volumes too. All right.
It's $899.
Yeah, now
$899. It's not.
It's proof that Nikon is watching this stream because they just jacked the price up $100 because they knew I was
there
coming.
You go.
For it.
There you go.
But I'm not able to click on it to buy it. What the heck?
Wow.
Hey, there's no reviews on it too, so I'll be the first one to review it.
Uh-oh.
All right, man. I'll tell you.
I love this community.
It felt good to get it off my chest, and again, just so those that know, I'm going to try to stay away from such passionate rants on the regular streams on Wednesday and Saturday. But hey, you know what? People that come to my impromptus, well, buyer beware.
I mean, it's in the title. You know what you're in for.
Exactly.
There's no
Yeah.
surprises.
All right. So should I wait for Black Friday or should I just go in and pull the
Here's
trigger?
what I did. I
It's
bought
been
all my
Black
gear.
Friday at Nikon for 6 months. What do you mean wait for Black Friday?
I bought all my stuff on Amazon because I'm a Prime business member and I can return it in 90 days, no questions asked. So I've got the gear I want, and now I'm waiting for the price I
Oh,
want.
really?
I'm going to return it.
Hey, I
I'm
have
going to
that too,
return
man.
it. I'm going to return it and
90
get the
days?
gear I want at the price I want.
Wow, that's pretty good. 90 days.
Yeah, that's a hack right there.
All right, Jeffrey. Hey, I sent you the link, but if you decide you want to join, by all means, jump in. Vahagen's got one too. Vahagen's hot, heavy, putting out the next video. He, I guess
Look at Jeffrey's comment from Selective.
yeah.
Chuck, we're all worried about you, man. Did you take your meds today?
No, don't worry about me. Worry about Nikon.
Worry about Nike. Oh, it would be epic to have Vahagen in here. Do the song live for us.
That's what I was waiting for.
If he comes on, I'll take the mic over there. I'll actually play with him and he can do the singing.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah. You bring up a good point, Baron. Could we get maybe a development announcement on something? We did for the Z9, albeit 9 months before it was actually officially announced. But Nikon at least made an official statement that there was in a development announcement for the Z9. And I guess from some of the conversations I've heard, there was much debate going on at Nikon whether it would be a Z8 or a Z9, meaning they were, I guess, agonizing over the full grip body. I don't know. So, but yes, give us a development announcement. Should have done that a couple of months ago.
But today's
It just helps people. It helps people that are putting money away for a camera body. It helps them to decide whether, okay, I haven't heard anything, therefore nothing's coming. So I'm going to jump over and I'm going to buy a Sony A7R5 or whatever.
That's that's a great point. And that's something I never thought about because if we had a roadmap and then you'd be like, oh, this camera is coming out at X amount of date. That means I have this much time to plan the finances. And if I have extra gear that I want to get rid of, and then we can plan and not all of a sudden just be like, hey, this camera just dropped. Or what if someone just jumped over to a different ecosystem and suddenly the camera they wanted drops? Yeah, see, that makes perfect sense.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying a roadmap, and there's never been a roadmap for bodies. And they brought that up in the Grays of Westminster chat this morning. But you know what? That announcement for the Z9 went a long way, didn't it? And why did Nikon choose to do it this time? Because they knew people were getting fed up.
So there it is again. It's popped up in the chat by Yamin. They simply don't know how to create the hype around their brand, and I would agree. I think
absolutely.
I was talking
about that earlier.
I was talking about Hagen yesterday. I don't know how many of you know, but apparently the Z9 can shoot 4K and not 4K, 8K video in RAW internally in the camera at 60 frames per second. Did you know that? See?
Oh, I said roadmap. I used the wrong terminology. I think I meant to say development announcement. Yeah. So at least people would know.
Now let me add to this, Baron, because you weren't around me earlier, back in October, November, and December when rants were the thing. And why? Because Nikon screwed the pooch significantly with the Z9 announcement when they opened it up for NPS members, which, by the way, they probably doubled their NPS membership in October. When they said that anybody with an NPS membership could order all the way out to, what did they extend it all the way out to the end of December? In other words, all the pre-orders that we consumers put in were pushed back if a NPS member decided to order in December, 5th or December 20th. And was that good marketing?
I think it's the same thing as when
Who
you go
who
to
who
a
keeps Nikon in business? I mean, let me go on this rant here for a second. Who keeps Nikon in business? Professionals or all of us hobbyists?
Oh,
but
for
look at
sure,
it
the
look at it this
hobbyists.
way,
Yeah.
Chuck. When you go to Disney World, they have something called a fast pass. People pay extra money to get the fast pass, and they get to go on the ride first, right? And I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not supporting what Nikon's doing, whether it's right or wrong. They made money, so if they made money through NPS and they increased that
No,
pool,
there are
it's a
three
business
levels of
decision.
NPS. The first one's free. Guess what their majority NPS members are?
Who's that?
Free.
The free one. Okay.
Wow.
The free level. Okay.
Wow.
So no, you can't. And oh, by the way, I can't buy the fast pass with
So
Nikon.
that's messed up. It should have been for the
Yeah.
paid NPS levels.
I can't pay for a
I didn't know
NPS membership because I don't have any.
You don't
I
have
don't.
enough gear.
No, that's not the case. I'm stupid that way. I got plenty of gear, but I don't make a living with photography.
Oh yeah, Sony does the same thing. Actually, something similar. It took me like 2 years for them to even accept me into this program, and I'm like, what the heck? And one day, all of a sudden, they just added me, and I didn't even know they added me. And charged my card, and I just submitted it in and
Wow.
got it on there. Isn't that weird? Yeah, they all do that. I don't know why they do that. Canon does not do that though.
I love Moz, man.
What did you say?
You know what? I'm going to hold you to that because I'm not so sure, Moz, man. Oh man.
Honest, man, I'm trying to actually spend it, man, not save it. The more I
Oh.
keep saving, it's losing value with all the inflation that's going on. I need to
Yeah.
spend it.
So look, my number one issue with Nikon is what? Marketing. Okay. Even with the slow production and the slow rollout and whatever, but I'm sorry, marketing. Nikon does nothing, absolutely nothing to entice anybody else, let alone their own consumers
Mhm.
to, hey, stick around. It's the old, well, here it is. Nikon's really working on something dynamic. No, I don't. I don't know nothing. I know that they built a new headquarters. I know that they bought a couple of multi-billion yen companies. I know that they hired more employees. What I don't know is what's coming down the road. What I don't know is should I continue to save for a camera that is fictitious right now? It would
That
help
sounds
if
like
the
a
marketing team could do something to kind of help us out, ease the pain.
that
I'm
sounds like
not
a
one of those
breakdown
people. Here, news
on a
flash for those that just joined. I am not one of those people that's happy to just sit back and be treated like a mushroom. And you know what I'm finding? There are a lot of people that are like me. They just aren't as vocal, but they feel the same way.
So,
All
would
right.
you buy one of these three on the screen, Chuck?
Right now, yes,
You
today,
would? Okay.
announce it today and
And it's
watch me.
me. I would say yes to it too. I would just go there and say, that one right there. Send it over.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that are here in this chat right now that have said the same thing. I said, pick one. If you would buy today, pick the camera and let me know. Everybody's waiting on these bodies. Nikon does not have this. All we have is a Z9. That's all we have. A Z9. We got a basketball team on the floor with nothing but the center, and we're wondering why we're losing.
How many people do we have in the chat right now?
34.
All right, everyone, head over there and hit the subscribe button because we got to get him over to 1,000 by the end
Yeah,
of the
for sure.
end of the month. Because he's making more videos like this, we're gonna lose some. So go over there if you haven't done it and go do it right away, please.
Yeah.
And smash that like button and hit the bell so get notifications for future rants.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to title these from now on Impromptu Rant.
But
That's
I
it.
spoke about this yesterday in someone's comments. I believe it might have been on Vahagan's channel. Is I remember when I was younger, when we had television and you had to flip through, commercials all the time. I remember constantly seeing Canon Rebel commercials. Now those weren't geared for professional photographers, but you remember they had Andre Agassi and then all this stuff with sports. But those
Mm-hmm.
are geared toward the people that were shooting their kids for sports. These were the EOS and the Rebel. Their professionals weren't using those cameras. But I never saw another camera company doing that type of marketing. And now today, I see all kinds of stuff going on with YouTube and these what are they, creators of light or something? I can't remember what the
Influencers. They're influencers.
yeah. And so same thing, Nikon, where are they? They're nowhere. The only place I learn anything is on 24, media 24/7, and on this channel and Z Wade's channel, and everybody else that's paying attention to what's going on and thinking about it. This is where I learned, and I'm like, that's none of that's Nikon. Now they decided, hey, we don't have to do anything in marketing because all we got to do is keep the mushrooms mad, and they'll do it for us. I don't know. But you're right. Their marketing is a disaster.
So
Yeah.
put that comment back up because what George is saying is really, really important. And this is the same thing they do to Canon as well and other brands, right? Read that comment for a second.
Yeah, I know. I put it up there for a reason. Nikon
It's
came,
incredible, right?
yeah.
If Nikon comes up with it,
Well,
Canon comes up with it, it's a gimmick.
but
Deep, deep
we've
learning.
learned to live with this in the Nikon camp because 8K 60 video is stupid.
Right. Because
You
what
know,
Sony did was they made video
it's
after video after
stupid.
video.
Nikon, blah blah blah, or 36 megapixels when the D800 came out. Well, that's stupid.
Right.
I don't want any more megapixels. And now where we at? 61.
61.
Yeah.
61. And that's right. And everyone wants that in the new Z8. Why? Because it's stupid. And Sony did it, right? I mean, they did it like 2-3 years ago.
But
I have that
I
camera.
just, I guess people maybe their only argument is I don't want to pay for it. So I want a dumbed down pinhole camera from Nikon. That's all I want. I don't want to pay for video. I don't want to pay for mirrors. Give me a pinhole camera, Nikon. I don't know, man.
It's sad because I think they have so many opportunities. Even the Z9, like when I was talking about Hagen, I was saying there's so many things that camera does. They never advertised it properly. They undersold it. They're really devaluing the camera.
I'm right there with you, Greg.
I haven't worked out in a year, produced better.
I'm right there with you.
Oh, buddy.
Uh,
Where did these guys get these from? These are good.
yeah.
All right, I'm going to start a new channel. That's it. I'm going to announce it here. It's going to be about raindrops. I'm going to put some raindrops on with some music.
All right.
to calm
Yeah. Oh man. I'm again, I'm not going to apologize for my rant today. That ain't happening. And that's why I did it separate. So I
I
don't
love
have
this
to
side of you.
apologize.
So I just love this side of you because it's got so much passion in it.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? It comes at a cost.
There is one thing I'd like to put out here to the Nikon fans because this is something that I mentioned on my video yesterday towards the last 5 minutes of it. Vahagan made a video based on what he is thinking. He's lighting the fire, just like Chuck is doing now, just like what I did in my video. And he took so much heat for that, right? And some of the comments were really uncalled for. I'm sorry, man. You guys need to be a little respectful because the amount of time it takes to do live streams, to make even a video and put it up there, if you think you're better, you go make it and we'll come to your channel and watch it. Because it's really easy to sit there and say all these kind of I don't even know. I don't even bring up what the comments are, but it's terrible what they did to Vahagan. Now he called me for literally like 3 hours. We ended up talking. We were counseling. It's wrong. So guys, if you got nothing nice to say, don't say it. Just say, fantastic. Thanks for the great video. Move on. And one guy was like, "Oh, you wasted 4 minutes of mine. You need to give it back." No. Why
Yeah,
don't
I
you?
saw that.
Why
That
don't
was
you?
nuts, man. I
No,
was like, oh
that's
my
called
Get
that's,
off
God.
my
that's called
chair.
a decision. That's called a
Yeah,
decision
Yeah.
that you made. Yes.
exactly. So I was telling Lahan, tell him, why don't you go watch a Mars video and spend another 22 and waste that too? Go. I mean,
You
it's like
know,
it's crazy.
people like that are so miserable. They're just trying to spread their own misery. That's all it is. I feel
But
sorry for people like
it
that.
actually
Anybody that
hurts.
clicks the thumbs down button, people are so sad.
And he's trying to do the right thing. He's really trying to light the fire under Nikon. I
Mhm.
mean, he made a song today. I mean, I know he's being comical, but seriously, if Nikon is not waking the heck up and supporting channels like yours, Chuck, and his, and Jeffrey's and everyone's channels, they're crazy because these are the people on the ground using these products. They
Yeah.
should
Well,
have the product in their hand, not some influencer that's going to make a video to get some views, and then all of a sudden, it's like a dead thing. It just dies.
well, and this is true too, which I try not to do. And if I put up, a title like Nikon's fallen behind, I'm willing to back that statement up. I'm not doing it for sensationalism, or something like that. But I don't do clickbait. I'm not going to do that. Um, and yeah, you're right, because I've left those comments on, Jared Poland's way back when he was doing all his, when I was still subscribing to Jared Poland and watching his content. And I'd fight him on that, clickbait titles. Is Nikon going bank? I didn't fall for the bankrupt, but the typical clickbait titles.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I would expect to get some heat for them,
Right.
and rightly so. Um,
Well, like he said, he doesn't
I call
even
it
read his
clickbait.
comments. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
But yeah.
I call it think bait. I don't even call it clickbait on what he did. I mean, I just came up with my own word. It's think bait. Why is the Nikon community not thinking? Right? Into okay, if you really believe that this is so important, get on Nikon's site, send them a message. Right? Support at Nikon, whatever. Hey, man, we're Nikon avid users. This is what we want. This is what we want. I kid you not.
Very
Sony apparently they listen. I don't know what they do. They don't do everything, but they listen. And when you send them an email like that, okay, we'll let you know, whatever. But it's all done by Japan. So apparently that information is making it over there, and then they're putting these things in these cameras,
Yeah.
right? So and then they market it that way. Hey, man,
Well,
all these people are asking for this. Let's make a video and highlight this technology.
so Ray, thank you for making that comment, because I want to make a statement here. If people, who is Nikon listening to? That's a scary thought, isn't it? But I
mm,
have to believe, and there are a lot of people that are listening to these live streams, by the way, not just mine, but others that are cropping up. And I know it because it seems funny that we can talk about something, and you know soon afterwards somebody's doing a video on the pretty much the same subject.
yeah.
Coincidence? Maybe, but I don't think so. So a lot of people are watching, all these live streams and everything else. So, but to get your voice out to Nikon on my live streams, they're not going to sit and watch a 5-hour live stream. And guess what? They're not going to scrub through all the chat comments. It's the comments when it rolls over into video that count, guys.
Right.
That I do believe they look at.
Right.
And we're missing the opportunity to speak to Nikon and others. Anything else that we're talking about. We're missing the opportunity to get that information to them if we're not putting it in the comments
Yeah.
when this rolls into a video. As soon as the live stream ends, that's where all these things, not all, but I mean, so many bullets need to be placed because yeah, I do that with other people. I go by and check out if it's a long live stream or it's a video or whatever. I'm looking at the comments for almost every video I watch. I want to see what people are saying, which is where I get a lot of this, to talk about when I say people are switching and Nikon's bleeding. If you read enough comments and watch enough videos and see enough live streams, you realize that, hey, this is not a one-off. This isn't just one guy saying I'm going to do it. There are a lot of people out there saying it. And I believe that, Nikon, it would behoove them to watch these live streams.
You
to
just gave me a
see,
good idea there, Chuck, too.
yeah,
I know you talked about going back and putting some timestamps in your videos. That
yeah,
might be a really good key to use, is to go back and timestamp the really important comments that get pinned on the video.
yeah,
Just use those as
uh,
a guide to put the timestamps in.
yeah.
Because some of these folks have like really good points.
I'm just checking here. Yeah, and you know what? And I've toyed with that idea. Maybe when I'm truly retired and I can sit down the next day and go through a 5-hour video,
Right.
adding more timestamps. But then again, I looked at it, and if you guys, if you've ever watched or rewatched one of the live streams, we cover things like 5 times over. And there's a reason for that, because the live stream runs so long. And again, my viewer count stays pretty much the same all the
It
way
really
through
does.
5 hours. And
Yeah.
that's not everybody that begins, because it'll ebb and flow, as time goes on. And I know that's because it's opening up into more time zones and people will join, when it's more convenient for them. So, but it's hard to capture all that. I'm going to try, I'm going to work on that and find a better way to do it. I did it on one of the live streams, and I'm going to do it. But yeah, you're right. Maybe at least a timestamp for a critical moment when we're making a point about what Nikon's doing, should do, or whatever. Um, and yeah, I'm always looking for a new way to try to get this information out, which is again why I go back to my subscribers, guys. I'm absolutely humbled by the amount of people that have subscribed. And when I'm asking for more subscribers now, it's not for the monetary piece, because that's pennies, if any. It's more about pushing the content, because I want it. Once I hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, uh, YouTube begins to push the content. And I want to get it out there in front of more people, because I know there are a lot of people that feel the way we do and want to talk about the things that we talk about.
Right.
I'm just getting no visibility. It's all word of mouth. But anyway, thanks for those that have subscribed and putting up with my ranting and everything else. But again, I'm going to try to promise this. Rants are going to be impromptus. It's kind of more fun to do anyway, but I know I have a lot of subscribers that would rather just talk photography, and I'm going to try to keep that promise and keep these major rants at least out of the weekly streams. So for those of you that are watching and thinking, I hope this isn't going to be the beginning of a series of live streams on Wednesday and Saturday. No, I'll try to keep it out of there. But this Saturday, or tomorrow night, we are going to talk about the 3.0 firmware update, because I know nothing about it other than reading the specs. And I want to hear from you guys that have already updated, and, let everybody know what your findings are and how it's working for you, because not everybody's going to use everything that's in the firmware update. Maybe it's specific to you, and hopefully if you used it, you can speak about it during the live stream. So we are pushing Mr. Mozman's storage conversation back, and Mozman had contacted me and asked me if I wanted to, considering the firmware update. And I thought, yeah, because I know everybody's going to want to talk about that. And we'd have been talking about it now if I hadn't been ranting, I'm sure, but trying to save it for tomorrow night. So
The
tomorrow night.
comments are, yeah.
Yeah.
The
All
comments are
right.
making me wish I hadn't have failed French in high school.
Yeah, I know. I wish I knew. Yeah, I agree. Uh, let's see. And I want to put up, let's see, Photography Discourse. Get over there and check out his channel, guys.
Yeah, I just subscribed to his channel. He looks like he has some
Good,
great videos. I'm going to be looking at
good,
watching those.
good. Z62 is great for just about everything in stills except for action, and very low light is the ladder that hurts one of my, yeah, there you go. Yeah, and you know what? And that's what I've tried to say over and over. About the Z6, Z62, Z7, Z72. They're good cameras, but there's so much tech that's come out since those cameras. That's the problem. And everybody wants the new tech, whether they need it or not. Some people like me, I just want it. Okay. That's it. I want it. But
And
there are people that need this new tech that's coming out also for what they do.
And just a sidebar too about what's going on with this community and stuff. And we talk about all this stuff. I've learned so much here in the last month of being involved and getting to actually get real opinions from people that actually use things. I mean, you see over here, this is a stack of boxes of stuff that just came in today that I bought because of this channel. you know so I mean, it's not it's so great to be, and I know I made good decisions because I trust the opinions of the folks here that come in, and they're just their honest selves. And I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about the rants, is because it's just you being you, and everybody being themselves, and bringing their positives and their negatives to the table, and being honest and open about what they care about. And I think
Yeah.
that's just so important.
Yeah, and it definitely it's an open forum for everybody to state their opinions and stand behind their opinions and whatever is and Martin, yeah, I understand, and that's the whole point I keep making about the Z9 was not the save all camera.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to say, but look at the specs, but people don't like the price.
Miles
They
man.
don't like the size, and that's okay. And there's no reason Nikon can't have similar specs and a smaller body camera. That's just, I don't get it. So I agree with you, Martin.
Maz, what kind of M&Ms did you get?
Yeah, yeah.
He got M&Ms just because of you, Chuck.
All right, cool. Let's
Man,
see.
you guys are very lucky. You don't have that sugar issue. I got that sugar issue. I can't be eating M&Ms like that.
Yeah, see, I quit eating sugar in November of 2020, and that's all I've done. I've just cut sugar out of my diet. I've lost 70, almost 80 pounds in 2 years.
Yeah,
I quit.
I try really hard, but it's very hard to do, man, to get it out because there's so many foods that have it.
Yeah, it's hidden in everything. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
I quit eating sugar about an hour ago, but that's that'll change here in about another hour. But
Got to have my coffee though.
uh, oh man, let me jump down here, get down to the bottom.
Look at Jake Kilmer's comment about the Z9.
Oh, a parasitic.
Oh man.
Chuck, doesn't this I when I was watching that whole thing, oh, we have a separate chip for it and this and that. It really reminded me of the old days with the autofocus being on a separate chip, and then obviously the sensor. Back to the DSLR days. It's like, are we going backwards? Separate
Yeah,
chip.
yeah.
This is too funny. Coffee is for photographers. Hey Chuck, you're only 330 away, man, from 1,000.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
growing, man.
You know, I remember when I started this channel and I had all whatever 18 subscribers, and I thought I'll never get to 500 because that was the goal then, because I thought that was going to open up more opportunities for the channel. No, it really didn't. But it seemed like it took forever to get there. So you know how it is. Anybody that's and I say this, and I'm going to say it again. This is for all the YouTubers. If you have somebody that you watch and you check out their content, drop a subscription, help those people out. Again, it doesn't cost anything. You don't have to feed it, water it, do anything to it, and you can forget all about it and never look at the channel again if you like. But if at some point you like what they were saying, just understand that they're consistent, meaning, they're doing something, putting out videos or doing something consistently. There's a lot of effort being put into it.
Right.
And, you can't imagine, if you're not a YouTuber, you don't have a channel, an active channel. You can't imagine how much effort they're putting into trying to provide that content. And you can't
Yeah.
imagine how happy they are and encouraged by it can be as simple as just a like, but a subscription really encourages them to continue to produce and continue to improve. So what you see may get even better based on the fact that you're willing to uh, drop a subscription. So,
Mozman just
I
took the
encourage
words right out of
everybody.
my mouth.
Yeah.
Mozman is so fast on the trigger.
Yeah. And thank you, Martin. I've, I keep stating this over and over and over. And, I just,
It is
man,
true, Chuck, because I had
I
another
can't.
channel in 2020 and I was cranking out daily videos that I had a blast doing, but they never got any traction and never got subscribers, never got any. I was having fun, but at the end of the day, it was like, no, this is kind of, what am I doing? I guess I need to just do something. I was doing it for fun, but then when you really started to look at, how much time and effort and like a perfect example of what Amar was talking about with Vahagan's latest video, to do all that and sync that video up and see, folks, that takes a lot of time and effort to do all that and make it
Yeah,
look as
but
good
that
as it
don't matter
looks.
to these people, guys. Seriously, it
Yeah,
doesn't, because they're
yeah.
entitled to your time and you sacrificing the time you're spending with your family, with your client, because it's almost like if I'm watching a video, I own you. No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't, because I can tell you right now what he just made right now with that, the song,
That's
knowing
hard.
how much work that is in Final Cut.
Yep.
That probably took him at least 4 hours just to edit the heck out of it, if he's really quick.
That's why he wears
Yeah.
sunglasses, folks. He doesn't sleep. He stays up all night making videos. Trust me.
It takes a lot. And then on top of that, you have a family, and then you have your wife, your kids, you have all these other things which are commitments. People don't understand that. So it's not just about the Z9 all the time. I mean, the
um,
guy's got a life. I mean, he's got
yeah.
to take care of those things. And same thing with
Michael,
you,
I,
Scott.
Michael, I don't rant much, but the words instant coffee will make me go on a rant. I may not rant about Nikon, but the words instant coffee will set me off.
I'm
Uh,
with you. I'm with you, Moz, man. I'll drink it when, there isn't brewed coffee in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I'll drink it. Yes.
so
Because
Jay
coffee's
Kilmer,
coffee in the
Jay,
end.
Jay Kilmer wants me to make videos on the Z7 II and the Z9 and get the media out there. I'm for it. I'm gonna go meet up James on the 11th. I think I said we're heading up there on that Friday to the Conowingo Dam. If anyone wants to come, please, you're more than welcome. As long as it's not pouring rain that day, I think we plan to go. And maybe we'll go live from there. And talk about the Z9. And then I don't know what other cameras does J-Rod Photo have? Do you know? Does he have anything else other than the Z9, or he's just only one Z9?
No, he's got a Z5 or a Z50 or something also.
Okay, so we'll try those out, and then I'll have him try the R7, right? And whatever X he wants to try. I mean, I just let me know. I'll bring it there, and let's just shoot together, right? Because the bottom line really is, I truly believe that these Nikon cameras that are out today, they were really undervalued because they were really not positioned correctly to what they can do. Because I didn't know the Z9 freaking did all the things. And once I started talking to Rahadi, I'm like, no, it doesn't do that. He's like, yeah, it does. Go to their website and look. And I'm looking at their site. And even on their site, it's not clearly listed to what that is. You have to read between the lines and figure it
Yeah.
out. So I think Nikon really needs help badly, and they need real creators and influencers that really understand the technology to get it out there to say you can do all these things with this camera. You don't have to go to your Sony or your Nikon or your Canons to be able to do the same. Our camera already does it. It's just called something different or is implemented differently. That's been my experience.
Yeah.
Just
Um,
a
we've been
small.
talking about that. We've been talking about that for a long time too, or at least I've been trying to get that out there as well. There just seem to be fewer, and I know I'm going to meet some resistance here with some resistance. there seem to be fewer Nikon creators on YouTube, and
Hmm.
um, I know, and the argument is, well, that's because everybody's out shooting. Well, you know what? If you're going to be a creator with Nikon, you're obviously out shooting, right? So,
Michael's killing me.
but I don't know why that is, but I find that there are fewer Nikon creators on YouTube on a regular basis posting, things or whatever than there are, um, Canon or Sony. Um, and the other thing is, I've also noticed because obviously I'm now looking for these things. I've also noticed that Adorama and B&H, there are a lot more sponsored videos by Sony and Canon. Now, that's a
Right.
Nikon issue. That's not a viewer issue.
That
That's
is
the
correct.
Nikon issue.
That is correct.
So, and I don't understand that, and I definitely still to this day don't understand sending haters your camera so that they can beat it up. Which is
Yeah.
why I just fell out of love completely with Mr. Jared Poland. At if his
Hmm.
if his love hate relationship with the camera was across the board for every brand, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But
Right.
anyway, I
Right.
don't understand that marketing strategy either. So
So this one comment is kind of really
Yeah.
important, and I think I alluded to this in my video, and it's true. It's spot on, and I think this guy. What is Jay Kimmer? I don't know what his first name is,
mhm.
but after watching some of the Sony A7R5 video, can you want to put that one up, Chuck? Because that's a really very profound statement that
Which
most of
one?
these influencers are not talking about when this camera actually released. It's like fifth or sixth down on the top.
And then
Yeah,
and
this
then
one.
photography discourse has a point too that I never thought about that makes perfect sense.
Okay, let's do that one right after this one.
Yeah.
So this one is talking about. I get the feeling that Sony is actually behind. Need to show Nikon is ahead of the game. No one's doing that. You're spot on, because I can tell you right now, with the deep AI learning that Canon introduced about 3 years ago, these guys are still playing freaking catch up right now. And I've been saying this all along. And all these people are, you're just a fanboy. I'm not a fanboy. I own Sony cameras that I pay $10,000 for, and they still have contrast and phase detect in there. That's the problem. It's not all phase detect like the Nikon sensor is. So apparently Nikon was able to get even above and beyond what's in the Sony camera. So up until the A7R4, it was contrast and phase detect. So that's why they used to get that focus breeding nonsense happening, right? And so they are behind, but it's how they market and how this new camera was like, oh, AI this, oh, it's brand new AI that. It's not new. It's old tech. It's already 3 years old. We've had it, and so has Nikon in their cameras, but they didn't do a good enough job putting it out there.
Yeah. Well,
That's the problem.
yeah. And who am I to say that billion-dollar corporation Nikon doesn't know how to market? But I'm saying it. They don't know how to market.
What
Well, I
was
think we
that
have the
comment?
right to say that because we're the people they market to, and we're not seeing
Yeah.
anything.
Right.
Yeah. And I,
Which Discord?
I've, I have been saying this for the longest time. For the longest time, I know that Canon has their, followers, older generation as well, but Nikon seems to be absolutely full of it, and they're the most vocal. And it
Yeah, his
seems like
next
Nikon
comment.
listens to them more than they
Yeah,
do to the younger audience, and the younger audience is their future.
That's what
yeah,
photography discourse is actually
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. There's
yeah,
another comment he made up that talking about the PlayStation, and that's a perfect uh, thing there. And of course, my Z30 wants to go to sleep now.
yeah. Martin, do it, man.
I'll tell you seriously. I mean, I was sitting with Mahagan yesterday, right? And we did our analytics on our channels and brought them up and started looking. I have less than 2% of people on my channel that watch it. Chuck, you won't believe this, that are that are actually 20 years of age or less.
Oh yeah,
2%.
Wow.
Majority of my people are between 50, 51, and 65.
yeah.
I need to change that. So what does that mean? I have to have a different approach if I want to actually get some of those young creative minds to come to that channel. I can't be sitting there talking about the flipping mirror and the DSLR all day long because they can't relate to that. If
Right.
you talk to them about computational photography with the cell phone, they're on it, man. Oh yeah, I like this channel already. That's what they want to talk about. So it's more that the need and the want is constantly changing based on the demographics that we deal
Y-
with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel the
Absolutely.
same that's happening to your channel?
Oh yeah, I actually I finally got a percentile in the 24 to or 20 whatever 24 to 34
Huh?
age range. Yeah, finally. You know where my 90% of my viewers were 7 or 8 months ago
No
in
idea.
the what is it? Hang on, I can tell you the
That's just because I lied about my age.
uh 55 to 64-year olds. Well,
That's the one
it
I'm
wasn't
talking about.
90%, but it was 70%.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I've, again, I know they look at the screen. Oh, it's just some old man up there with gray hair. He can't relate to me, but and not that I'm trying to, but I'm trying to look at it across the spectrum from what the same perspective Nikon's should be looking at it. They are the future of the brand.
Yep. Yep.
And if you're not doing something to entertain them, then you're just cutting your throat. You're going to fight harder later.
So Wahaga made a comment to me yesterday. He goes to all these trade shows apparently, right, for Nikon and where Nikon's there. And his comment was, "All I see behind the booths are these older people,
Yeah.
in age, trying to promote how good Nikon was, not talking about how good Nikon is today, right?" And it's very hard when you do that. So I'm like, well, Sony's not like that at all, and Canon is slowly starting to change, but they're not there yet. Sony's got this thing down, right? I mean, they have. I'm going to be blunt, hot looking girls at the thing holding that camera, doing this, that, and the other. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden people are like, I want that. I want that. I want that. Right. And
Yeah.
that's what's going on. So I think from just a visual perception, it really makes a brand statement. I think they need to think about that. I mean,
Yeah.
for us, it's great. I mean,
No.
we're very well settled in our own ways into
Yeah.
doing stuff, but you want to get like my son on board on one of those
Yep.
cameras, he's gonna be like,
Yep.
"What the heck is that?" But if
Yeah.
you show him a nice music video of that thing, I'm like, "Hey, man, I want that." It's the same product.
No, you're absolutely right. And hey Dice, by the way, man,
Hey,
I
Jack.
understand that. It does take a lot away from, what you do on a daily basis or whatever. So again, that's why I go back to for those that are actually producing content, man, give them some love. You know, if you enjoy it, it's not too much to drop a like and a subscription for those that you enjoy watching. And I'm not doing this for my own benefit. I mean, I feel serious about that because I know now what it takes to do this consistently. So anyway, I understand what you're saying, man. A lot of people just think it's just turn it on and step up and enjoy the show, but that's not the way it works. Hey, Touch Life, Vitali, how you doing, brother? Yeah, another camera battle. It's not a camera battle, no, actually, not at all. It's a hey Nikon, wake up battle is what it is, brother. Um,
And my Z30 doesn't have a sleep timer on it, but I think after 2 hours it starts. I honestly think it's overheating because I have to turn it off and turn it back on, and it's lost all of its settings when I do. I don't know if anybody else has that issue when they're live streaming with it.
There is a reason why Grays is very successful with their live stream. And again, I'm not being a feminist. I'm not coming out and saying something crazy. Trust me, guys. We're all guys, right? And there are a lot of gals too on there. People like to see certain things that they see and that they get excited about. And it's not in a bad or bad way. It's presentation of what's happening with Leslie, or whatever her name is. What's the lady's name on Grace?
oh,
Oh,
you're talking
Becky.
about Becky?
Becky.
Becky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if Becky doesn't show up to 4 live streams, that live stream is going to go down to like 50 people, right? And you don't believe me? Have them try it.
No,
Watch.
well, they actually kind of did that a while back while
Did they?
Becky was away. Yeah,
Did
That's
it
why
do
we
its
need
thing?
that's why we need she weight on right now to bring Chuck's
Yeah,
numbers up.
that's right.
exactly.
That's right.
So it makes a difference. It was funny because like the few times like my wife when she came on, it's like everyone's like, "Oh man, you got to get her to come back again." I'm like, "Really? She knows nothing about cameras. Doesn't matter. Whatever she talks about, we just like listening to her." I'm like, "Really?" It's but it's that's what happens to people.
Yeah,
And that's why some of these channels are big. They're not big because the content is so, mind blowing. Like Fro, I mean, he's built an extensive business around what he does.
yeah.
Right. So even if he goes to sleep today, I mean, he's going to do okay because he has so many business lines. It's not just his YouTube videos, and he's got so many different things.
Hey, Jay, this is exactly what I had this conversation with Vahagan. I can't answer this question for people anymore because you know, I, because that's another thing. And I was talking to Vahagan about it. People they'll ask YouTubers.
True.
If somebody's on YouTube, they expect them to have the answer, which isn't the case. But should I buy now or should I wait for the new Z7 III or the Z8? I can't answer that anymore. I have no idea how to answer that because if I say, well, wait for the Z8 and it's 6 months down the road, well, I gave them the wrong answer because they don't want to wait 6 months for a new camera body. So yeah, that's
Well, the
Sorry to
problem
break you in,
is,
but I'm about to miss my own appointment. I've been having
Go,
so
man,
much fun. I
go.
lost track of time. Thank you.
No.
Answer to Vahagan. Vahagan, do whatever you want to do. I love your channel. Be you and keep doing what you're doing. If you want to do other things other than Nikon, just do it, man. But I love what you're doing. Everybody else, thank y'all so much for having me here today. This was a
Thank you,
blast,
Huff.
and I've got to run. So thank you guys. Y'all have a great day.
All right.
too.
Take care, Brian. All right.
I mean, I think the thing is if you wait and wait and wait, what's the point at some point? I mean, if you buy the latest, what you think is the latest and greatest, 6 months later, something's going to have come out that has some other feature and it's no longer the latest and greatest anymore. If you go by that standard, you'll just be buying cameras every 6 months. So at some point, you just got to say, what do I need to do what I shoot? What do I need to accomplish what my goal is and what I shoot, and be happy with it, and don't feel that you got to get the itch every 6 months to go and trade it in and buy something else. I mean, because you do what you want. I mean, you have the choice. You do what you want, but
who's brainwashed you, Jeffrey?
Oh yeah.
Are you listening to Amar?
No, I haven't even talked. I don't even have his phone number.
Amar doesn't talk to me, man. He doesn't talk to me. He just
I don't have his number. I even asked.
Okay,
Moose for
okay,
his number,
okay,
and I only have his email. I'm like,
Okay, go buy what you want.
yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to decide how long you want to wait. I mean, if you're 85 years old, how long you're going to wait, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying it's okay to get the Z5, enjoy it for 6 months till the next one comes out, sell it, then buy that.
Hey, Baron, this I love this comment. You
This is great.
I would like to say go back and watch some of the previous streams, but there are too many of them and they're too long. But we talk about this. We've talked about this for a while, a long time.
Vahagan wants to try different brands. Vahagan, go get the R3, and I think you're going to be in trouble pretty soon.
I agree with the ambassador, the keepers of the light or whatever they are.
Keepers of the light. Love it.
And other brands and all the other brands hierarchy there. You're right. And people don't trust them anymore because they're going to say just, it's oohs and ahs and wonderful and great when they watch these folks. And the younger generation doesn't know who they are. They've now, they're dated. And I love the comments. Well, we need to educate them. Okay. Good luck with that. And I'm not taking anything away from the likes of Joe McNally or Jerry Guiones. fantastic. And it's fine at some point to go back there, but they're not advertising tools anymore for a brand. That's what I'm trying to say.
So we're going to Conowingo Dam, Rakesh. That's what you're asking. Which dam? We're going on the 11th, the weekend of the, well, not weekend, that Friday.
I'm going to chime in on Greg Wilson's comment, by the way. Hello, Greg. How long on average does it take to put a video together? All I can say is the last one I did, and I skipped, I believe, a week or maybe 2 at the most, but the last one I did took me between 6 and 8 hours to put it together, decide, how I wanted to format it. Because I had basically two separate topics on the one video. It takes a long time, and it does get discouraging. And I've talked to Chuck on the site about it. It does get discouraging when, let's just say, you get 100 views and 10 people give you likes. It's like, okay, so 90 of you didn't like what I did. And that's fine. But I always say, if I can improve, leave me a comment. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me where I can improve. All I hear is crickets, but I'm lucky if I get 10% likes on my videos. So it's hard to stay motivated to continue to do it when you don't feel that you have an audience. I mean, there are some hardcore people and a lot of people from Chuck's channel that have migrated over to mine, and I appreciate that. But I hope you're on my channel, not because I visit Chuck's channel a lot. I hope you're on my channel because you like my channel, not feeling obligated to go to it because I frequent Chuck's channel a lot. But I mean, if you're a creator, it's like, okay, you need to either improve, or as they say, something and get off the pot. I'm not going to use the word. It was a family-friendly channel, but I'd like to know from everybody, what do you like? What don't you like? Tell me. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to cry at night if you bash me. I'm a big boy now. I can handle it.
So Jeff, I know I talked to Chuck at great length, and I would like to dedicate one of my Tuesday live streams to you and your channel. Because of the work that you're doing, I think people need to really see it, right? And give you that platform for an hour or 2 hours, however long we end up going on that, like we did for Scott Sessions. And if you're up for it, just shoot me your information. The email is right there. And then, let's connect and come up with sort of what you would like to talk about and how you want to structure it and what you want to share. Because truly, I mean, I agree. It's not easy to make these videos. It's very easy to talk the crap. But when you have to sit in front of the computer for hours on end, it becomes very frustrating when you're there by yourself. No one's clapping for you, right? When you're making those mistakes and doing all these things, sitting there till midnight trying to get a video out. It's frustrating. So the only way we can really, keep each other motivated is, doing these kind of impromptu live streams, poking at each other, busting balls. I mean, if you want to call it that. We all do that. We all have fun with it. But I want to open that up to you and also to Moots as well, because I think both of you are doing incredible work. For James, I'm already planning on doing the 11th, and we'll do a live stream from there. And we'll probably end up, putting it on multiple channels. So we'll do it live. We'll have the fun. And what we want to actually show is, regardless of the brand that you shoot, we can still go out there, live in harmony, and actually still be friends. It has nothing to do with the camera brand that we shoot, right? As much as we think ours is better, mine's better, yours is better.
I think a Nikon-centric channel is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, one has to choose whether you want to be primarily, brand centric, but inviting to everybody else, or whether you want to be a general photography channel and talk about all the brands. But the problem is, most of us don't have the connections or the finances like some people do where they can go out and buy 3 or 4 different cameras from 3 or, buy a Fuji, buy a Sony,
Right.
buy a Canon, have a Nikon, and sit there. I mean, hey, I'll tell all those brands right now, you want to send me one of each of what you think is your best camera? I will grind it into the dirt. I will check every function on that camera, and then I will do a long video that'll put most people in a coma within 30 minutes. But I will beat the snot out of it, and I'll tell you what I really think of it. But hey, I'm just a big guy with a little audience, and they're not going to do that for me. But
Well,
as being an engineer, I could pick something apart like crazy. And
So it's
I
funny
have
that you mentioned that.
no loyalty either. I mean, I choose
Right.
Nikon for my own personal reasons, but I mean, I don't bash anybody else.
So you're gonna laugh at this, but last night Wahagan sent those guys at 7 Artisans an email, right? Hey, I do mostly Nikon. This guy does Sony and Canon, whatever. You should talk to him. They send me a thing back. Well, right now we're looking for creators that have a lot more views and things like that. I'm like, so 6,500 people is not enough, right? And so all they look at is just your YouTube, right? So same thing. So you're not even in the running. So I sent them an email back, a long one. I haven't forwarded it to you, Rahagan. I'll actually send it to you. I said, well, I have 22,000 Sony people in one group one community that I run on Facebook. Another one has 6,000. So that's almost 30,000 Sony people. And then I have 5 Canon pages, which have a total of 10,000 people. But you're right. That's not enough views for you. So you know what? No, thank you. And I thank Rahagan in that. It's like, thank you for introducing, but why don't you come back to me when I'm at 50,000 or whatever it is, when it's enough views, and you can pay me to actually review your stuff, because I'm not going to do it for free anymore. And that's how they are. But that's how these companies are. They really make you feel like you're worth nothing just because they have something which has 100,000 views that's at their doorstep.
I think everybody in there's talked about that too. How much love does Nikon get reviews and things like that from so many channels? Vahagan, Z Wade, and you do it with Sony and Canon and everything else. What do I get paid for that? Nothing. I'm not getting anything for it.
Nothing.
That's
right.
Well, you get heartburn. You get free heartburn.
But you would like a little acknowledgement. Maybe Nikon could, somehow mention, talking about the Nikon, what is it? Nikon on Instagram. They have their Instagram page or whatever it is. I don't know enough about Instagram.
Yep.
But how about some love there? I know T-Mid got a little bit a while back. They posted his photo or reposted his photo. But, people that are actually out there using the equipment or whatever, if you're small, they just seem to overlook you. It would be nice for a little recognition. It'd be nice to say, hey, we'd like you to look at this or that or whatever. Instead of looking at the numbers, and I guess they see that as marketing, it's going to be in front of more people.
Right.
Well, you never know how far somebody's going to go with Nikon reaching out and saying, here, test this, or, try this, and make a video about it or whatever.
And I'll be frank. I mean, the amount that we make on 247 off of B&H and Adorama as official affiliates of them is 10 times more than anything YouTube will pay you to make a video. 10 times more. And it doesn't mean that, B&H and Adorama is going to charge you more for the camera. They charge you the same. But this company just lost out on that, because I have actual people. If I say, oh, this thing is really actually pretty damn good, for the money, they'll go buy it. You know how many people from my channel buy stuff? They buy it. It's Timothy that's here. He bought an R7 watching my videos. It's just one example, but there's many that are there. So, it's their loss.
And and Mozman is talking about, I understand that, Mozman. That only makes sense. You want a large audience. If you're going to do something with somebody, you want a large audience to see whatever it is.
Right.
So I understand that. But, camera brands have raised influencers too. You know, they saw potential and they just stepped in and helped them out, let them have loaners or whatever. And I think that's big. And I think Nikon needs to figure out how to nurture some influencers themselves,
Right.
you know. And I'm not saying to lie for the brand, but to actually do a good job in promoting the brand. And I just don't see a lot of them out there.
No. I mean, I appreciate those who look at products and say, I agreed to accept this product with the condition that I can speak my mind and say whatever I feel I want to say based on using it. Now, whether they all do that or not for real, I don't know. But I would much rather have someone that is willing to be critical of something
I think that's why
than
ambassadors
just
are
pushing it.
I think that's why ambassadors aren't so influential anymore, you know, because people realize that, you know, they're not going to point out the deficiencies or anything like that. And I'd like to say that they give it a real world review, but they don't. You know, a real world review, give it to somebody that is an amateur, a hobbyist. And I know this sounds crazy, but let them struggle with the camera to really give you a review of how well it handles, um, how intuitive it is, if that's what you're pushing in your, you know, your marketing. Uh, and let them go out and do some crazy things that ambassadors are not going to do. Walking around a backyard taking pictures of bees, you know, that sounds crazy, but that's a real world review. You know, that's how the camera or a macro lens is going to be used. Don't and let that sell the camera on how easy it was for this person to perform, you know, that genre of photography or whatever. Anyway, yeah, I mean, that's a long way into Nikon's marketing strategy. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out how to get them to communicate better.
Yeah.
You know, because who knows with Nikon, who knows? We could get a camera tomorrow. They could announce the Z9 II tonight.
They
For
could.
all we know.
They could. For
But
$38.99. As long as it's $38.99, I'm in.
but the whole point there is that, you know, some kind of a heads up, some kind of an idea, an outlook, not a camera roadmap. That's not going to happen, but something out front so people can one, begin to save for it or whatever, and hold off buying not just another brand, but another camera and being ticked off 2 months later when you make the announcement. You know, I just bought the Z7 II, and 2 months later the Z7 III comes out. You know, I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you're going to be a serious amateur, you need to feel good about the whole ecosystem within a brand. And, you know, not just the camera body. It's got to be
you're right.
flashes and lenses and accessories and do they offer you know, free educational videos, and how active are they with getting you training? And it's all the big picture. And people tend to just look at one little thing and make a decision. They don't look at the whole picture. You need to look at the whole picture because it's not cheap to do this crap. It's
so
expensive.
let me ask you guys a real question, right? Real. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head right there, Jeffrey, the last statement. It's not cheap to do this. When someone says, I'm going to go into a system, how do you know that someone is actually committed to that system? What is it? Is it the camera? Is it the lenses? What is it that really keeps people around for the long haul?
Well, unfortunately, sometimes slick marketing could make people not look at other brands enough to find out that maybe that other brand is actually as good or better, or has something in their packet that makes you go that way. It's just like you look at the tilt shift lenses. Okay, if somebody's into architectural photography, and even some landscape photographers will use tilt shift lenses. Well, if you have it made up in your mind, I'm going to do architectural photography, and you go with a brand because of their camera, and then you find out they don't make a tilt shift lens, then you didn't do your homework. Shame on you. You have to really look at, you know, I always said to myself, I wish I had a camera shop back in the day, because I would never push somebody towards any brand. I would interrogate them. I'd say, what do you shoot now? And what do you want to shoot down the road? What do you have interest in now, but what might you want to do later on? And depending on what answers you get to those questions, it's going to lead you down a certain path in a certain direction.
Right.
Yeah.
And people don't ask a lot of questions. If you just go by the marketing hype and who has the better commercial on TV when they did commercials on TV, or who's doing the best videos on YouTube or whatever, do your stinking homework. It's not a cheap hobby. You don't want to make a mistake and cry about it 6 months later.
Yeah. Oh shoot, where was I going to go? Man, I got lost in typing and.
let me give you a scenario, right? Two scenarios, right? One is one person that has one camera from a brand, regardless of the brand, and then they have one nice lens, not the kit lens, a nice one, right? A 24 to 105 or something really nice, so not too crappy. And then on the other hand, there's that same person has, or another person has two cameras from that brand, right? But they have, same thing, the same type of lens, one for each camera type of thing. You have more cameras here. Now the first one that only have one lens ends up going out there and buying 2 to 3 more lenses, right? Nicer lenses, right? So now they have one camera body, but like 4 nice lenses. Which one of those two is most likely to jump to something else when the new shiny toy comes out? It's a tough one, right?
That's a tough one. It depends on how much they paid for their lenses, how much they'll get for their lenses.
Bingo. Right. So I said nicer lenses, so they're not crappy lenses.
Right.
Yeah.
So it all depends on what you're going to get, and then it depends on. You could say the person with 2 bodies might be maybe he's shooting in a pro environment because he has to have a backup. He can't just have one camera because he's doing weddings or whatever.
Yeah, or he could be a hoarder like me.
Hey,
yeah, I'm kind of that way too, but within reason, I guess.
Hey, Moz, man, yes, Sony has name recognition with a younger generation. That's a big feather in their cap.
They do.
It didn't take too many kids, and I say kids, and I'm sorry if it offends people, but younger than 60 years old is a kid. But
I'm not a kid anymore.
They are very influential amongst their peer group, and that has helped spread Sony as much as anything else. Mm-hmm. And I made this argument a while back, talking to people, talking about how if the number one brand recommended out there, because there are more kids or 20 somethings, 18 and 20 somethings out there than anybody else, is Sony. That's the first word that comes out of their mouth because their buddy bought it. And I'll tell you another reason, because it had video in it. So it gained a lot of followers in the younger generation, and it sold like hotcakes. And everybody said, no, well, blah, blah, blah. It's not true. Well, it is true, because I'm around that generation with motocross and everything. And I'll tell you that Sony is the brand of choice. That doesn't mean that there aren't other cameras, but Sony is big, and it continues to grow for that reason. And that's why I said Nikon needs to get younger. Nikon's missing a generation of shooters. And when that generation comes to fulfillment, there are very few Nikon shooters in it. And what does that do for Nikon, or even Canon? Canon's doing better in that category than Nikon is, though. And those that said it earlier, Nikon is full of old farts, and it is. And old farts that don't want to let go of film, and they, film is a hobby now. But anyway,
dagger.
Ben, welcome, buddy.
Dagger.
Hey guys,
Hey buddy.
can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Sounds fine.
I'm sorry for the bad quality here. I'm using my laptop. I don't have my camera set up at the moment.
Well, it actually looks good for your laptop.
Looks fine.
Hey, Baron, excuse me for a minute. You haven't seen the show much. I have to take my old man break for a minute, but you guys go ahead. All
Yeah,
right.
don't come back with
I'm,
any M&Ms now. No sugar.
I
Yeah,
don't have any
M&Ms
M&Ms, or I would.
or
They're just
cookies. They'll
giving them
come
a
back
hard
with
time.
cookies and brownies and wave them in front of us and
All
tease
right.
us.
Be right back.
Chuck is a trip, man.
Hey, Amar, I remember I was watching your channel, like it must have been 2018 or maybe early 2019
Yeah.
when it was right after the Z6 came out and everyone was bashing it.
They
And
trashed it. Yeah.
yeah,
this
and I
was
remember
really-
you were on there and you're like, this is ridiculous, and I'm a Canon guy and I think this camera's fine, and the Canon R was also being bashed at the time, and I remember you said this is a safe place for Canon and Nikon people.
That's funny. You still remember that.
I remember that.
I'm glad
But
that you're here and you remember. I was telling Wahagan these stories, right? It's like, Wahagan, I'm going to go out there and start making shorts. Now that I can make shorts off my old content, I don't have to redo the videos. I can just link to it. So if you guys have interest, I'll make short after short after short, linking you back to sort of the things that you're talking about. I also had made a video, if you remember, back then, saying that the Nikon Z mirrorless camera is one of the sexiest looking mirrorless systems out there at that time.
Mhm.
And that video took off like crazy. What do you mean by sexy? I'm like, it looks awesome. It looks better than the crap that, this. If you look at the Sony ones, it's just like a block. It has no like real character. It's just block, right? Back then there was nothing like that. So, Nikon, when they came out with the rounded edges and stuff, I was like, man, this looks nice. And I made that video. So they apparently loved it. So I've always supported the Z system. It's just, I think Nikon always undersold it. They did a very poor job of getting it out there and to getting into the hands of the right people and highlighting what it all can actually do. Because that 45 megapixel sensor that came out in the original Z7 was light years ahead of anything else that was available at that time. It was, but look at it today. Now it's like no one even talks about it.
yeah. The
Well, I
Nikon
think,
raw files they're so good.
Yep.
And I think, I don't know though. I think that like a lot of things were done wrong. I think the 1.8 lenses that everyone criticized, those lenses are fantastic lenses. It's basically a pro line of 1.8s, but they never said that. I mean, I guess they did because they said it was S. They said it was S line, and that's supposed to be enough to know that it's whatever. But I think they should have made the point. This is a professional series of lenses.
Right.
It's because everyone assumes it's 1.8. That's the consumer junk.
Yeah.
And wow, look how expensive it is. It's so expensive for consumer junk.
You say, what's the S stand for? Superior or
something
else that isn't nice to say on the live stream.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Sony benefits though so much from things that have nothing to do with cameras. I mean, it's just name recognition. You go to the movies. How many movies do you watch are done by Sony?
Mm-hmm.
The PlayStation, the TVs, everything, back in the years ago, the Walkman, whatever. I mean, Sony is ingrained in people from the time they're, 6 or 7 years old. I mean, and they're, so, I mean, when you look at what Nikon, they have their feet in the door of other things, but those other things aren't things that your average person recognizes.
Right.
If Nikon does 3D modeling and this, that, and the other, or 3D printing, people are like, yeah, big deal. I mean, what product do you have? But everybody, Sony more than anybody. I mean, even Canon. Okay, Canon makes printers. Great. Okay, you make printers. So somebody might know you because you make a printer. You don't do movies. I'm just saying, right. Sony's name is just like, people just see it as, oh, everybody knows Sony. Oh, whatever they make's got to be great because it's Sony. Mm-hmm. And that carries so much weight, right, wrong, or indifferent, but that it does, period.
Well, I'll share this. I mean, this was the lens that was criticized the most. You probably remember this one. Barrett, is that your name?
It's Baron.
Baron. This is the 5518, the Zeiss one that they made, and it was $1,000. And people are like, "You gotta be crazy, man! The Sony one's $299 or whatever, and this and that and the other." Guess what? even till today, this thing on the used market, it's almost $1,000.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you get what you pay for quality glass, and that's what I'm getting at. It's like when I still remember when Nikon released the Z6 and Z7 in the day. I mean, you saw those videos that I made. No one was supporting Nikon at that time. They got trashed. I mean, they got destroyed. I mean, it's like, what the heck is it? Is it the best you got? Oh my God, Nikon's done. They're finished. And they really took a major fall for that because people they were very disappointed. I'm not letting go of my DSLR. It's not worthy of me letting go of my DSLR. And that's the thing that Chuck keeps talking about. I lived it, and obviously you watched those videos, so it's kind of shocking that you actually brought those up. You brought up some old memories there. So if you haven't watched those, go back on my channel, have at it. All those videos were made back in the day supporting Nikon. But a lot of people think that, you hate them. You're a fanboy. I'm not a fanboy.
I mean, some of us have shot a long, long time. I'm guessing everybody here has. I was shooting Nikon since 1986. And I have a different, I am colored by that, like my view of Nikon, because back in those times, and I'm sure everyone here probably remembers, but for me back in those times, Nikon was definitely maybe by 86 it was transferring, but by the early 80s, Nikon was the standout brand. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about it. Nikon, I mean, Canon had the AE1 and that kind of stuff, but most of the photojournalists were using Nikkor lenses. They were better at the time, and it was just the way it was. And then later in the late 80s, Canon came out with the EOS system, and they really took autofocus to a new level, and all the sports guys jumped. And that's the story from there. It just goes from there.
Right.
But I still have this memory of Nikon as I guess it's an elitist thing. And unfortunately, I think the brand has this problem even more than I have it because they still see themselves as we're just better because we're Nikon.
Right.
And the truth is that could be true. That there's a potential world where that's still the case. Right. But it's not the case just because the name is Nikon. Right. So I think
embedded in you. It's become part of your DNA at this point, right?
Right. I mean, back then I remember I just, and I'm not bashing any other brands because I think they're all great, to be honest. At this point, if you were a guy who was working in a dark room 25 years ago, and you think about cameras and Lightroom and that kind of stuff today, it's just like another universe of of the reality of it. So to say any camera today is bad is the most disingenuous statement that anybody could ever make.
And what you're going to remember if you've been following my channel that long, I mean, you obviously said you brought back a lot of memories from many years ago. When I first picked up Sony, right, and I tried a couple of them, and the first ones were terrible, absolutely terrible. I mean, they weren't good; they were just terrible. It was just crap. And then they started to really improve. And when they got to the third iteration of it, I'm like, oh wow, they might be onto something.
Yeah.
And then when I get to the fourth iteration, I'm like, they are onto something.
Oh yeah.
And then when I said I'm gonna shoot a complete Sony system alongside my Canon. Oh my God, people just freaking had an aneurysm. It's like, what? How dare you do that? You're a traitor. And this, I'm like, it's my money. If I want to have two systems, why does it bother you?
Exactly. Excuse me for 1 second, gentlemen. I'll be right back.
And,
well, I'll tell you, we talk about Nikon marketing. The only place that has marketing as bad as Nikon or worse is NASA. Okay? Because, no, seriously. You got all these people that would say, why do we want to go to the moon again?
We just had a
space station for? What do we need to spend money on a space shuttle for? And NASA has a million things that have affected our lives that we don't really know about because they don't advertise it. And Nikon's the same way. You got some great equipment, man. You've got legacy isn't enough. I mean, Z9 is something special, but the thing is, you failed to point out what makes this camera different and as good or better than the other brands in certain areas, but better overall in a sense because you can't look at the price point, man. Look at the price point. Okay. if somebody else has one widget that's different and maybe somebody says it's better, okay, is it worth the extra $1,000 to get that? You got to decide. Is that feature or two features worth $1,000 more? But then again, Nikon will have one or two features that the other guy doesn't have, and you're not paying extra for it. You're saving $1,000 or more. But they really just haven't a clue how to promote the brand and how to get people's attention. And like you said, you can't. Ambassadors really aren't any good. I mean, they're good. I mean, they're good promoters. But the problem is, like Chuck said, they if they knock the brand, they're not ambassadors anymore. So you're not going to shoot yourself in the foot.
Well,
But you need independent people that are going to run things through their paces and just give an honest opinion. I mean, simple.
I want to go back to a comment that's actually, there have been a few people that have mentioned it, talking about Sony and where Sony is right now, and that Sony might be stumbling a bit. And I think that they're rocked back on their heels. And I said this when Nikon, when Sony was the rage and Nikon and Canon were still all DSLR oriented.
Right.
And when Nikon and Canon entered the mirrorless category, I said, well, there's competition now. And yeah, it wasn't as stiff at the very beginning with Nikon and Canon's first.
The keywords there are full frame.
Right. And Nikon and Canon, put out their, well, let's just say their best effort right up front. But we knew that Nikon and Canon, because of who they are, would progress real fast.
Right.
So, and I said then that there's competition, that the market share is going to shrink for Sony. And everybody was arguing, saying, no, Sony's not going to lose any market share. Well, they had to. Of course they were going to lose market share. And now Nikon and Canon are, toying with taking the lead in mirrorless technology. I'm not saying that they've eclipsed Sony completely, because Sony's very much embedded in a whole segment of people now, and they're going to continue to go down stick with Sony for a time being. But as Nikon and Canon continue to progress in the mirrorless category or mirrorless segment, Sony's going to be pushed back considerably over the next few years, because Canon and Nikon, their technology is just as good. And let's face it, Sony had the mirrorless segment to themselves, obviously, for the longest time, but they were still smart, and they really worked hard on the video side of the house, which again, now we go back to the age group in Canon and Nikon. And as you were saying, Baron, you have some nostalgia with Nikon, and you love the brand and whatever. And it was hard for a lot of people to break that bond with Nikon and with Canon initially to jump over to Sony. But now we're seeing more competition, and that's going to change. And I don't want to take away from my rant. I'm not giving Nikon a pass here, because Nikon has been the slower of the. So thank you, brother. Slower of the major brands to. Go ahead, Baron.
I'd like to just address, one thing I hear a lot from everybody lately, and I feel the same way. I think it's an emotional reaction. We're all a little upset right now that there's not a shiny new camera out, because Sony just put out their R5 or A7 R5, whatever it is. I think Canon's putting out the R6 II next month, supposedly. And where's Nikon, and where's my camera company, and blah blah blah. And I feel it too. I'm like, there's a part of me that's right there. I got that hat on, and there's another part of me that's like, I need to take a step back and think this through, because honestly, you don't to do photographic work, you don't need a new camera every 10 minutes. You could shoot today with a D850. You could shoot anything in the still photography world with a D850 right now and be more than competitive.
Right.
right now, and that's from 2017. You could probably say the same thing about the D750, which is from 2014.
But
So-
competitive compared to who?
But
Right,
you know,
but-
I'll let you finish. But you're on my favorite topic right now, Baron. So get ready for another rant. Go ahead.
No,
He's
it's
gonna
fine.
go off.
And I
I'm gonna do
appreciate
this
that.
ahead of time.
But I don't think Nikon is the company. If you're expecting Nikon to keep up with a production schedule of Canon and Sony, then you should be expecting to be disappointed. Like, that's just a fact. It's not the same level of company. It's not like the size of Canon is something like 6 times the size of Nikon, and the size of Sony is like 2 or 3 times the size of Canon. Maybe
But
more than
not their photography division.
Yeah.
though. That's
Okay.
what
Okay.
I'm-
So, yeah, you
No,
got
that's
to
true.
be
That's
more
true.
definitive. But the imagery division,
I
because
agree.
Sony,
I agree.
Sony
But
Cameras is not Sony
But
Corporation.
you have to keep one thing in mind, Baron, is Canon up until RF came out, the RF mount, the new mount, and the Nikon Z mount came out. Canon had already sold 225 million lenses in 30 years. That's their own. That's not. I'm not talking Sigma, Tamron, and all this other
Right.
nonsense, third-party stuff. I'm just talking about their own 225 million. Nikon was, I think, almost at 200 million lenses sold. How many did Sony sell on the A mount? No one has the figures.
Yeah.
No one bought the damn thing, right? So what did they have to lose? Nothing. What did Nikon and Canon have to lose? Everything. So they had to make cameras to say, how do I get that DSLR with that mirror in there out of their hands and put a Z into their hand? How do you do that? And the Z9 is the first camera, to Chuck's point, that has really gotten people to say, they might be onto something, but if they give me the same thing or something even close to it for like $3,000, I'll start to give up my DSLRs. And that's what you really want. And that's not happening on the Nikon side
Well,
as much as it is on the Canon side.
And let me throw one more piece in here, Baron, because I'll let you respond to that too. But times have changed. We're in a different era. Yeah. It's not necessarily about need. It's about want. And everybody wants to complain about you can't want to buy a new camera every 6 months. You can't do that. That's, that's not photography. Well, why can't I buy a new camera every 6 months? Why can't I want a new one next week? Why can't I want that? And whether it's realistic or not, that's where the market is today for a lot of people. I want, I don't need it. I don't need the Z9. You were absolutely right. I don't need the Z6. I didn't need my D850. I didn't need the D5. I didn't need any of these cameras. I wanted them. And you have to take into account this new buying power that's out there. And I bring up something, I brought it up so many times now. I think people are beginning to look at that too. The whole concept of only professionals get catered to in photography.
That's not true.
And that's that's the smallest segment of any sales of any of the brands. It's the consumers that want, that are buying. And why should a company not market to sales instead of something else?
Well, you brought up a lot of points, Chuck, and they were all good ones. To the first one, why can't you want something? The answer is, of course you can, and you should. And actually, if that weren't true, we wouldn't have very many camera sales at all, probably, for any brand.
That's right.
So I think that's totally valid. That's not really what I was trying to say. I guess what I'm saying is, if you're like, and I'm not saying this is necessarily how it should be, but I think this is how it is. So there's a distinction between what should be and what actually is. But I think in the case of what you're saying, like, should Nikon be able to pump out more product to appease, these sort of consumers? I think the answer might be yes, but I'm not sure that they are going to be in that position. And I actually, when I look back at what they have actually dropped, like, I have to say, like, if you look at what they've dropped in the last year and a half, think of what Nikon product are you actually disappointed in that's been dropped in the last year and a half? Like, what product has failed to deliver or over deliver from what you expected?
I don't think anything. I mean, they've all been
No.
fantastic products.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
I think overall nothing. Although one could argue depends on what genre of photography you shoot.
Right, but for what it was. So, for example, the
Yeah.
Z9 as a flagship clearly over-delivered. Like, we
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
know what was going to happen. If you remember September of last year, and actually I was on Vahagen's show, I think, in September of last year. This is before the development announcement by like maybe 2 weeks. And we had no clue when the Z9 was coming out. There was no word. It had been since March of that year. They said nothing. And we were all very frustrated. And I was making comments at the time about what the Z9 had to be to succeed. And like, I'm like, at least needs this, at least needs this, at least needs this. It did or surpassed everything that I said, to the point of like, all of us were sort of blown away. Like, as Amar said, it does 8K 60 in RAW. And like, and the other thing is, it's got this shutterless mechanism. No camera company to this day has done it. To this day, it's already over a year later.
No one.
So,
and no one talks about it.
Right. And so I'm saying Nikon has incredible technology and incredible engineers, and they always have. And that's part of their snobbery. Unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, they create incredible instruments of photography. On the other hand, they're very proud of themselves for doing that. And
it's that ego and that cockiness that destroys them.
Well,
Right.
well, you know where they talk about it? The competition likes to say, well, because you don't have the mechanical shutter, your flash sync is only 1/200th of a second instead of
stupid.
1/250th.
But
Like
those people
that's
aren't-
really a big deal.
Okay,
But
so
Jeff, those people are not strobe shooters if they say that.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like 1/400th of a second doesn't do anything for you outside. Like, that's a stupid, like, there's no distinction. You're either going to go to high speed sync or you're going to have a filter, period.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if it goes to 1/500 either. That still doesn't help. It's got to be at least 1/2000 before you're even talking about any difference. So
I agree with you, but
kind
the
of
problem
pushing
is
off the topic here of
crazy
manufacturing.
marketing scheme that the competitors have, where any little thing, like Sony shoots 30 frames a second, Nikon only shoots 20 frames a second, but there's limitations to the 30 frames per second. Nobody talks about that.
Well, yeah, they don't. They don't. Yesterday, you guys saw, right? I mean, they released that A7R5. Oh, it does -4 EV. Okay, with which lens and what situation? And when do you really get the eight stops of IBIS? It's a very specific niche situation where it does that.
Okay, it's like six things have to be met to get there.
No one reads that.
Okay, guys, we're kind of getting away from the whole.
Coming back to Nikon.
Yeah,
go ahead, Baron.
If I could just say, like, so there's a lot like just keeping it in the Nikon sphere, because I agree with all the comments about how the others are branded and how everyone ignores their flaws. All of that I agree with. But even in the Nikon sphere, I'm saying, like, if for example, in February of next year, the Z6 III drops, and if this camera exceeds expectations, or if it meets expectations or exceeds them in the way Z9 did for its category, then I'm very happy to wait till February. Like, I'd rather that come out next Q1 and have that camera than have something that was not quite ready. Like, and not to disrespect other companies, but the R5 came out, it overheated really badly. Like, they didn't put a product out that was finished. And by the way, now I understand it's great. And now they have fixed it and it's awesome. And
but they didn't fix anything at all. All they did was just change when that little sign comes on.
That's
all they did.
Fair enough. No, fair enough. But whatever the case, whatever it was, people were having trouble, right? And so I'm just saying, like, if Nikon, like, for me, I'm shooting with a Z6 II, and is it perfect? No. Like, I just, the things that hurt me the most is in very low light. I think the autofocus in low light is weak.
It
really is.
I agree.
Is. But like, outside of that, and I'm not really a sports action shooter, so I'm not counting the fact that it's not good with birds, because I think that's also true. And I know that's true because, like, I shot some soccer with my Z50 because, and like, it doesn't track. You just have to use the box, like old school DSLR style. But the tracking's not going to happen, just not. So, but I'm saying, if that Z6 III comes out in February, like, it didn't hurt me to wait till February to get it. Really, not really. Maybe a couple of gigs. I could have got an extra shot I wouldn't have gotten, maybe here or there, maybe. But like in the end, I don't like. I'd rather Nikon puts out the high quality. Take the lenses, for example, like the 800 PF they put out. That's an incredible lens. Everybody thought that lens was going to be north of $10,000. And if it were $10,000, it still would have sold, I bet. But the fact is, they put out this incredible thing for like $6,500, which in that sphere is an incredibly inexpensive price.
So Baron, how do you answer Vahagan's statement in the chat there? He goes, "I'll give Nikon it moved kudos when they come out with something. It's awesome and it works." I think you just laid out a couple of situations where that's not happening.
Well, I think so. My question. So first of all, like you're right. I think that I do think the Z6 II works. I just don't think it works fantastic in extremely low light. But I'm talking about really low light, like really, really low light. Not that it's a little bit dim, right? Yeah. I'm talking about like I was shooting a guy drumming at this event a couple of weeks ago, and they had him in the corner in the back, and all the lights were in front, way in, and so he was like in the dark.
Yeah.
So it's like it's an onerous test. Like I'm not saying like the thing doesn't work in a general sense. It didn't work in this extreme scenario. Mm-hmm. But I would hope we can get there. And I don't know how much, like, to me, would the Sony have shot better at that point? I don't know. I'm not sure.
So not really. addressing that, Baron, and Lombo just made the statement, and this is where I've been. The Z9 was going to be the camera that brought Nikon from the ashes for those that were naysayers about Nikon's ability and whatever, this was going to be the camera, and rightly so. It brought out some wonderful new technology. Well, unfortunately, the cameras that it below it were behind where the competition was before the Z9 came out. And I understand why people want, this new technology and new bodies. We're 2 years behind everybody with every camera except for the Z9. And I just don't understand the marketing there. You had to know when that new technology was released by Nikon, everybody was going to complain about the camera they had. I want that new in it.
So Chuck, do you think Nikon's going to give us? And again, I'm speaking as a Nikon owner. I'm not yet, but I would like to be. Would Nikon give us 80% of what's in that Z9 under $3,500? Do you think that's a realistic thing, or is that just a fantasy based on your experience with them?
I'm sorry something caught my shiny object. I missed part of your comment.
So
go ahead.
So the question is, you have all of the feature-rich Z9, right? It has all these things it can do.
Yeah.
Do you think Nikon has the ability to deliver on a body or a camera sometime in the near future that will give you at least 80% of what the Z9 is under $3,500?
No, not under $3,500 now, because the competition's showing the inflation and everything else. And I think Nikon may be competitive, by a couple $100. That's a great possibility, especially if it's no shutter, because no shutter and EVF is what's helped bring costs down, I believe.
So let me ask the question a different way then. I'll ask the same question a different way. Z9, the way it sits right now.
Yeah.
At what cost do you think Nikon can deliver that 80% of its functionality to people that can't really afford the $5,500?
So can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
So I think it depends on what the 80% functionality is you're looking for. Like which parts are you looking for? Because I think it depends. That matters depending on which part you think is going to be included or not included in that 80%.
Has the Nikon community defined that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I actually think
that's what I'm getting at. Does Nikon understand what their people really want?
No. The thing is, where are you going to cut? Where are you going to trim it down? Are you going to cut down on?
That's right.
You're not going to do 8K. You're going to offer 6K,
right,
instead of 8K. Are you going to not do 120
earlier? Because if you cut those things out, Jeffrey. they're
So
going to come after you saying you crippled the freaking camera, just
Well,
like
yeah,
Right.
but
This is
that's
why.
exactly right. Do they
if
intentionally
you give it
and
every
obviously
feature,
do they intentionally and obviously cripple a camera? Because it will
Well,
be obvious
well, wait a
with the
second.
tech
This is
that's out
why.
now, and not just using the Z9 tech, but tech that's in lower tier cameras with other manufacturers.
Well,
And I don't care. We can be as proud as we want and say, well, we're Nikon and I'm a Nikon shooter and I'm willing to wait for another year or whatever. No, that's not marketing. That's not good marketing. Relying on the people that are willing to sit back and wait forever is not good marketing,
let's
because there
talk
are
about.
always going to be people that are going to come on and defend and say, I can wait 6 more months.
I'd be curious to know from. When we talk about the camera that's going to be 80% of the Z9? Are we talking about Z8? Are we talking about Z7 III? What are we talking about?
Good
regardless
question.
of what the badge
No,
is.
no,
Well,
hang on a second. Hang on a
because
second. Defining which body is absolutely right. You're right in asking that question. And so many people want a D850 body in the Z8.
So,
Well, no, times have changed. Nikon's flipped the switch. 45 megapixel flagship was never ever anticipated, was it?
right, but that's the thing. Like, I think we have to look to history to get a sense of how Nikon
Right.
operates.
That's what I'm trying to get the sense of.
I disagree. I think Nikon is changing that, but go ahead.
Okay, well, maybe so. To me, it makes no sense to put a Z8 out with 45 megapixels.
Okay.
I'll just tell you that right now.
Why would you say that?
Yeah, I'm
Because
curious why.
yeah, because that makes no sense. I mean, it makes okay. So here's when I say it makes no sense, I'm talking
Yeah.
more marketing than I am talking practicality.
Yeah.
Because practicality, obviously, they have the sensor, so
Yeah.
it would be easy for them to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, just throw it in the other thing. So I'm saying I don't think that makes sense for many reasons. You have to differentiate. Like, there's a reason why. So yes, the flagship jumped up to 45 megapixels. In the past, flagships have been 20, 24 megapixels.
Mhm.
And no one expected that. But if you look at the D850 and the D5, right? This is like kind of like they were a pair in a way. And the D850 was the high megapixel, like kind of like, I think originally was supposed to be more of like this, like the studio photographer's camera, but in the end it was like basically good for everything.
yeah.
No, it wasn't. And that's
Landscape.
where I'll disagree. It
Landscape
was
camera.
not good for everything. As
Well,
much
I'm
as
not-
everybody wants to tout it as being, it
Well-
was not, because I had a D850 and a D5, and they are not comparable at
Correct.
all.
Okay, well, but hold on. So when you say they aren't comparable, what was specifically the differences that you noticed?
Speed, buffer, battery life, and all that's obvious reasons. There are obvious reasons for that, right?
Chuck, you just differentiated the Z9 from the Z8.
Yes, I did. And here's the Z8 body I've got on the screen right now.
No, well, I don't think it's that. I think the Z8 has to have it has to match the A7R5's megapixels, if not exceed it.
Okay,
here's
then
why I
what do you
think
do?
they
What do you
will.
do with the Z7 III?
Hold on. First of all, the Z7 and the Z8 are totally different cameras. Like, there's a lot of confusion on the internet about those two cameras being so identical that I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Like, the user interface of those two cameras are radically different. And one is a prosumer body and one is a pro body. And that is totally the case. That's consistent with Nikon across the last 10, 15 years.
I think what Rakesh put on the chat window there, I think he's really onto something, and I truly think Nikon's going to come up with a 30 to 32 megapixel sensor for that Z8 and make it into a total, very affordable beast that's going to be good right in the middle without ruffling the feathers of its flagship.
Well,
I mean, I think it's the other way, strangely enough, because what we know is Nikon already made a statement about a year and a half ago that the Z6 II would be the last 24 megapixel camera that they make.
Yes.
They already said that. That's official.
Yes.
Okay.
Right? So we already know,
26 or 30.
unless they lied to us, which is possible, but unless they lied, and it's from Nikon, it's not a rumor. So unless Nikon lied, the Z6 III will have more than 24 megapixels. Probably it will have the 33 megapixel sensor of the A7 IV.
So I'll share this coming from the outside in, right? Wanting to buy something. There are two things that I see a major void in. in the lineup today, and that's keeping me from really pulling the trigger and buying something. One of them is there is no D500 replacement, and I think they're making a big freaking mistake to not do that. They need to get one of those cameras out in a DX body, be it stacked or non-stacked. I don't really care, whatever. It just has to be fast with a 200 to 600, and that needs to come out as soon as possible.
Baron, I want you to look at this chart and tell me what you disagree with.
Okay, so by the way, I like your chart. I don't want you to think I'm like
No,
being a
no,
jerk.
I understand. I'm just trying to differentiate between the bodies here.
Okay, so well, looking at the Z8, I expect the Z8 to be 60 to 80 megapixels.
Okay.
And the reason is for many reasons. Keep in mind that they have this HE technology now.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can put an 80 megapixel sensor out there with the HE. You can bring those file sizes down to something that's reasonable.
Yeah.
So, because one of the big arguments against high megapixel is it's unwieldy, and that's true. It is. But with the HE, that fixes that. Now, if you added in something they didn't do on Z9, which surprised me, but I think they should on Z8, if you added in the ability to do the small, medium, and large RAW on top of HE, now you can do anything with an 80 megapixel camera like that.
Okay.
Anything across the board, like any level you want.
Okay, so give me the genre, or give me the what that camera is, the audience it's aimed at for shooting what?
D850 users. Period. Like it's all everybody who had a D850.
Okay, I got that.
How much would you price it at? How much would you price it?
It would be anywhere from $3,800 to $4,200.
Hang on just a minute, Amar. Okay, so that's going to be the landscape portrait commercial camera, right?
Right.
In the Z8.
And the frame rates would be less than the Z9 for sure.
Yes, of course. Yes,
and they should be. And I think if they did like 12 frames a
so
second,
because it's an 8, it has to relate to an 850.
Well, that's just the naming convention we're all using.
Okay. So so hold that thought. 3 blind men and an elephant. Sorry, had to throw it in there.
He's great.
Yeah. So then the Z7 III, what kind of camera, what audience is it aimed at, the Z7 III? Or are they just going to get rid of the Z7 series?
Well, I don't know. I'm torn on that. I think the Z6 and the Z7 going forward are going to have the very angle screen. Whereas I don't think Z8 or Z9 will. I think Z8 and Z9 will have the Z9 screen as far as how it tilts. Because it's clear to me that Z8 and Z9 are not vlogger cameras. They're not those cameras aren't being purchased to shoot yourself. That's just not what they're for. Okay. And so we don't need these, I got to see myself when I'm doing video kind of nonsense for.
I got you. Okay. Right? Got that.
So I think that number one, you're going to have the very angle screens in the prosumer line, and you're going to have the dial on top in the prosumer line. And in the pro line, you're going to have the mode buttons and all that stuff. And you're going to have the screen that doesn't come around, but it's more robust, but it does vertical. And you're going to have the lighted back switches. You'll have that on the Z8 as well. And it will be, and also the build of that camera is more of a tank. I mean, we're talking about cameras you can take to the Arctic.
So you're talking about changing the actual body as well.
I'm saying the Z8
body should be bigger than a Z6 or Z7 because you lose all the buttons. You lose a lot of functionality if you get a smaller body.
The body will be bigger.
The function buttons.
The body will be bigger, but not as big as the Z9.
Not as big as the Z9.
Right.
In between.
So what you're suggesting, and this is where Con and they're talking about the same thing. You're suggesting Nikon doesn't build a mini Z9.
Correct.
Why? How many Z9s are going to sell over the next 5 years?
But it doesn't make any difference because Z8 will be like Z9 has a niche, just like D5. How many D5 sold? Like, honestly, like not that many.
That's exactly right. So is it fear of competition with the Z9, building a mini Z9 and not with, okay.
No, then I don't think so. I think it's not, it's a different niche. If I want to shoot sports action.
I got you, man. But everybody wants a all-arounder camera, a smaller, wildlife, smaller birding, smaller everything camera.
Well, I think that you can do that with a Z8. It just, you don't need 20 frames a second to do birding. Like, you don't. I mean, that's just like,
Well, we're
that's all
back to
marketing.
need.
That's
It's not
Sony
about
marketing
need.
stuff.
It's not about need. It's about what the audience wants.
Well, first of all, they could do it. They could maybe make it so if it could shoot higher frame rates when you dumb down the resolution, because you don't need the, I don't know, but it's not going to be, to me, the Z9 is their camera for that purpose.
See,
Like,
the Z7 III was initially called the D850 replacement. Nikon never said it. Now, I know that, but everybody else began to give it that,
yeah, but
that,
it wasn't. Clearly
no,
wasn't.
I would agree with you.
And I would also argue that for birding, so the other thing about birding, like, the truth is the lion's share of the birders are not pros.
That's right. That's
right?
true.
And by the way, I don't say that disparagingly. Like,
No,
I think
that's
like,
true. You're right.
it's just
You're
true.
right.
Like, there's not a big market for professional bird shooting.
You're right.
Right.
But birding goes along with sports.
Tell me
and
about
events.
it.
Right.
Birding,
But
hang on.
totally
Birding goes along with sports and events and all that.
Right, but I totally respect it. Like, I think it's awesome. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. But what I'm going to say, my point is, the lion's share of the birding market for Nikon in the past was D500. Okay, because the D500 has an advantage for that because of the reach. You want to get more megapixels on the target.
Well, I understand the whole idea behind Pro DX body too. Yeah. And
Right,
the
so I
D500
don't
sold, but it didn't sell extremely well. It sold, but not extremely well.
Which
It did well.
D500?
Yeah, the D500. Yeah, I have a D500.
D500 sold pretty well, from my understanding.
No, within the first 2 months they were caught up and everybody could get a D500. And it did well, but it didn't do.
Continued to sell over time. It had legs. That camera had legs.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, you put out a Z90, you got a Z90 with the 200 to 600, assuming that's a good lens, and I have every reason to expect it will be, because so far they haven't really made any bad ones. I think that's what everyone buys. Everyone who wants to bird is going to buy that combo, and that's it.
Okay, so this is a new strategy. I get you. I'm following you. So you're saying that don't build a full frame all arounder. Just make it a Z90.
Well, Chuck, when you say all arounder, that's a distinction, because I do think Z8 can be an all arounder. All arounder means it can do everything, but it's not specialized. You see what I'm saying? Like, Z90 is specialized.
No, I think once you go above 45 megapixels, because there are already complaints about noise there, unless you're talking about now it's going to have new tech AI, and AI is going to become part of the noise reduction.
Well, I think that for the Z90, you would have, like, I don't know exactly, but it would probably be like at the most 32 megapixels. And that, probably somewhere between 24 and, well, probably not 24. It's probably above 24, because I think they actually said they aren't making any more 24 megapixel cameras. So it's going to be 26 to 33 megapixels on an APS-C sensor. And it would be like a Z9. It would be like a baby Z9. It would have all of the shooting capacity. Like,
no, I disagree with you 100%. And the reason for that is because people don't want to shoot, they're going to buy full frame glass because they want everything that comes out of full frame glass, and they want a full frame camera body that's doing basically the same thing. So they take advantage of it. They don't want to put that glass. If birders, yes. Some wildlife, yes. And I know that's the bigger draw for the Pro DX body, more so.
It's the wildlife and birding crowd. That's who's going to buy it.
Yeah, it's those that want the perceived more reach.
Well, it is more reach in a sense, because you get more.
No, it's not. It's still 600 millimeter, no matter how you cut it. But the perception is of being 900 millimeter using a 600 millimeter lens.
But what I'm saying, you're correct. Of course, the lens doesn't change. I agree with you. However, if you're getting more of the megapixels, the megapixels are in a smaller area. So when you actually catch the bird, you have more megapixels on the target.
It fills the frame. That's what it does.
Your image circle changes, guys.
Yes, it fills the frame. Yes.
Right. So it's higher resolution for that image, for the actual bird in the image.
it's
That's the point.
inherently more, right? So your 20
But
megapixel D500 now is equivalent to a 40
yeah,
megapixel full
yeah.
frame.
But we go back to, can I just shoot in crop mode, DX mode
Yeah,
on a
but
full
yes,
frame?
yes,
Is
but
it
up until
exactly the same as a
yeah, but
DX20? And I'm not
no,
going to say it is or it isn't, because there's an
well,
argument in the world of whether it is or not. But
I
go
think it
ahead.
is the same on the Z9. It is the same because it's a 45 megapixel camera. So you're shooting
Right.
19 plus megapixels in DX, but that's the first time that you had a camera with that kind of frame rate at
Correct.
that high of a megapixel.
So
Right.
this brings me back to the higher megapixel too. Frame rate is frame rate, noise, and sensor size all play up, are all in
Right.
competition. You know, we can say that give me a 61 megapixel camera or an 80 megapixel camera, and I'm going to be able to shoot at 20 frames per second. But what you're saying is, don't limit the frames per second on a Z8.
I think if it does like call it 14 or 15 frames a second, that's plenty.
It is.
Well, it would be that if you were talking a higher megapixel
Right.
sensor anyway.
So,
and that's fine.
simple thing. R7, 32 megapixel APS-C. A7R4, 61 megapixel full frame. Which one has more resolving power? Can someone tell me?
Well,
The lesser one.
Right, the R7?
Yeah.
Yep, it does. So
Okay.
this equates to a 83 megapixel full frame sensor when you upscale it. So when people tell me it's exactly the same, it is not even close. Because if I take and go 1-to-1 on this image, on this camera, go 1-to-1 on this, it's not the same.
It's
So
more
I just want to lay that to rest. I mean, when we're
okay,
looking at
okay. So,
a Z50, which
let-
is 20 megapixels, guys, a Z50 is 20 megapixels.
hang on a minute. I get you, Mar. But I'm back to, you got 3 models of camera that Nikon can produce. That's not including the Pro DX body. All right, so let's go with what you're saying about the Z8. Let's go ahead and say it's going to be the higher megapixel camera.
First,
All
yeah.
right.
It has to compete with the Sony A7R5 also. They have nothing in that market yet. Nothing.
But do they need to compete?
Well, that's a question. That's a good question,
okay.
Omar. I agree. But I think from a perception standpoint, this is
I
where
go
it goes from practicality to perception. Yeah.
I go back to, I want to right now lay out what 3 models are going to be Nikon should produce and what they should be, because you've got a Z6, you got a Z7, you got the Z8. Let's say, I think that's the accepted term for this new camera, new body to introduce into the lineup. You've got a high megapixel camera already in the lineup with the Z7 series.
Well, no. Well, it's not any higher than the Z9.
Well, no, it isn't. You're right. But it was the highest at the time, wasn't it? Nobody knew the Z9 was going to be 45 megapixels. What everybody think? That everybody anticipated the Z9 until the rumors started floating around that the Z9 would be the typical 24, maybe 30-ish megapixel camera. But it turns out it was 45. Okay. So the Z7, is it going to remain at, they're not going to lower the resolution in the Z7. It just remains a 45 megapixel camera.
Z7 can be high megapixel camera for prosumer, and it doesn't really have to go above 45 megapixels because that's plenty.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it matters. I just think, like, to me, Z7 is like, it is a little bit of the outlier because it's the one that's the least needed. But in a way, that's not true, because I do think there's going to be a significant price difference between Z8 and Z7. So there may be a market for Z7.
Is there just this big, is the debate really about the naming convention?
No, because I think Z8,
does the Z8 have to be the prosumer body or pro body? Does it have to be?
Well, it doesn't have to. I mean, my point is, there needs to be, in my estimation, there needs to be a pro body that doesn't have a built-in grip. So you call it whatever you want.
Yeah, and it has to still have the great weather sealing that you come to expect from a pro body.
Okay. Well, you got that. Why do people not think that the Z7 and the Z6 II and Z7 are as resilient, as tough as any pro body. It just doesn't have the weight or the bulk, but it's still just as tough. And oh, by the way, the Z9's experiencing all of a sudden there's a rash of mounts breaking.
Right.
You
Just
know,
to be,
dropped
just
cam.
to be right, but to be clear, like the Z8 should be a bigger body, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's because the size thing, like this notion that everybody wants a small camera is not necessarily true across the board.
Okay.
And with bigger lenses on these cameras, I want more heft in my hand. Now, when I shoot a wedding, I like the Z6 size because
Right.
I have 2 cameras on me. I like
Right.
that. But when I'm shooting portraiture and stuff like that, I don't care about the size. It doesn't, I don't care. I'm not like lugging it all day long.
Yeah,
Like-
I mean, you want the ability to be able to remove, right, and make it small if you want to, make it big if you want to, whatever.
Yeah,
I
right.
think that flexibility. When you have a unibody, it's kind of hard because you're stuck with that body.
Right.
I
All
think
right.
that's what they're trying to say.
Like I think so. I believe Z8. Let's call it Z8. And the reason we're calling it Z8, Chuck, is just because we don't know what else to call it. I don't
No,
know.
I
that-
agree with you. I agree with that 100%. It's
So
just
let's
another number in the naming stack there.
So if you look at your chart, for example, you have
Yeah.
Z8 listed at 45 megapixels with 15 frames a second max. So in that scenario, I think someone can rightly say, oh, they're crippling the camera. Right? Like, why
Yeah.
do they do that?
But that's
They-
their answer to the R5. I mean,
Right.
so the Canon R5.
Right, but why cripple it? Like, so to me, if that's an 80 megapixel camera and it says 15 frames a second, now you can't say it's crippled.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I actually did that because everybody would start saying, at least when I did this back in June, well, now, why would anybody buy a Z9? Well,
I'll tell you.
there are many other reasons
still
why to
will.
buy a Z9 rather
Right.
than,
If you're-
just
if you're-
a 5.
If you're a sports photographer, professionally, you're buying a Z9 over a Z8.
Yep.
Definitely, according to what I'm imagining a Z8 to be.
Yeah.
And that's not a question. And also, if like a lot of other people buy Z9s anyway, like everybody who bought why did you buy a D5?
Because of action photography, shooting motocross and other sporting events. Yeah.
And that would be a good reason to buy a Z9.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't think so. The Z8 is not necessarily, it's not to me a replacement of a Z9, it's actually something different. In the same way that D850 was something a little different than D5.
But there are people that want the Z9 features in a smaller body and a cheaper body.
Well, they will get them to an extent, but I think the people
Not every single thing.
I think the people who want those features the most are the birding crowd, and they're going to get that in a Z90 because the Z90 would be an APS-C version of the.
That's right, APS-C version, and that's what I'm getting at. And
right.
I honestly think right now, Nikon is not competing with Sony. Really, they really have their eyes set on Canon, and if they're not, they're fools because those two have rivaled each other for the last 80 freaking years. They know each other, the way the game works, right? So to me, I mean, Sony is great. It innovated whatever it could. After watching the last 2 to 3 releases, there's nothing that is earth-shattering today that they've come out with. I think Nikon and Canon really have taken the lead on many different places, right? Many different autofocus. Canon's probably got the upper hand. Silent, virtually no shutter. No one's done it. Nikon's done that, right? So they're showing that they're leaders in their own space. So both of these brands are going to go after each other. Now, are they going to respond to the R7? Yeah, they are. They are, because the D500 is loved so much. I mean, it's almost like people are married to that D500. You can't get it out of their hands, And if they were to just take exactly that same body, take out that mirror and stick something mirrorless in there, man, they'll buy it all day long. They won't be able to supply it and get a 200 to 600. That is one camera, I think, even before the Z8 comes out, that DX body with that lens, the 200 to 600 needs to come out like yesterday.
Oh, you're going to tick off a bunch of people with that.
No,
comment.
I'm not,
Actually,
because I'm telling you that thing will
That's what
sell.
they tend to do, though. That's what
I actually think
do.
Amar is right. If, and this is a big if, they have to put Z6 III out though, as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Like that, if that doesn't come out and only Z90 comes out, that's a big problem.
Yes, it's a huge problem. Yes.
Yeah.
Because this right now, You can't get it anywhere. They're selling the heck out of it. And if Nikon had an equivalent released around the same time, I don't think they would have sold as many R7s either
That's true.
today.
But
So
when Nikon
you're
released,
missing that boat. I'm telling you right now, that is the
well,
biggest missed opportunity for them.
except I think, yes, first of all, yes, but also I do think that the D500 crowd is still largely waiting because they want their Z90 with the 200 to 600,
Right.
and that's what they'll buy. And those two
Yep.
those camera and that lens should drop the same day.
Yep.
Like
Absolutely correct. And they should do a big bang and don't go out there and pick up these
By the way,
YouTubers.
if they're
Okay.
smart, the Z90 should be the best APS-C sports camera. It should
That's right.
actually be much better than the R7
That's right.
and more expensive. It should be
Okay.
like it'll probably be $1,000 more.
Sure.
Okay. I like this conversation, and you've opened my eyes a little bit here, opened my mind to consider. I'll grant you that.
I like that. I like your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, let me go back and challenge you on this, though. You talk about the smaller production capability of Nikon, yet next year we're going to get 2-3 cameras.
Yeah.
Why? Okay. Why is
So
it? Sure, we can do it, but we can't now.
Well, that's an excellent question, Chuck. I appreciate that because I don't have a great answer for that. I have a sort of a half-assed answer. For one thing, two things. One is we know that these things are in the pipeline for a long time. It's not like Nikon just decided to make a Z90 or something like today.
That's right.
After this conversation, right? So they've known they've needed this. They've obviously understood they have to replace their D500. But I also think that they were going through a restructuring period, as we all know. They fired a lot of people, they closed factories, they reorganized, they did all this reorg in order to get back into the black, and they did get back into the black. And then they had Z9 come out and it sold really well, and then like all these lenses, like if anything, they can't keep up with their sales at this point, which we know because that's
wait a minute. Hold it right there. I want you to consider they haven't been able to in the past as well.
Right. So, but I do think they also have hired 500 new people and they started giving raises. So that tells me that there's an expansion happening now again, that they can re-expand a little bit. So I'm guessing that they're ramping up a pipeline.
All right. I want to hold you right there. And I love speculation, but is there anything that we can find that shows Nikon's production capability based on the size of the company and everything else? Well, I mean,
that it's smaller than Canon or Sony.
Well, yeah. And
company corporate wise, they're definitely smaller because they don't have all the different product lines. But
Nikon
from
is
an
like
imaging department point of view, is it smaller?
Nikon's a $5 billion market cap and Canon's 30 billion.
So Chuck, can I
Canon
Can I send J Rod the email link? Are you okay with that?
Hey,
J Rod,
hang on a second.
I can send it if you want.
I don't know how much longer I'm going to be in here because I hear them out in the yard now. I'll be working, but all right.
Well, I'm just saying from an imaging department sense, because obviously, one could argue, Sony has so many product lines and they make X amount of profit, and they could decide where they want to invest that profit. They have more profit. They could say, I'm going to put more profit in my cameras. And Nikon doesn't have that level of profit because they don't have as many products.
I know, Moz, man, and that's what I'm digging at. We speculate a lot, and there's nothing wrong with speculating, but we can't confirm or deny any of the speculation when it comes to production facilities and numbers and everything else. We just assume based on a couple of items. Go ahead.
Well, Sony's a consumer electronics company at heart. And they put out products regularly. That's kind of how they operate. It's a little different. Like that's the thing. Like Canon and Nikon Canon has a lot of other businesses, but first and foremost, they were imaging businesses. Right. Canon and Nikon have a long history. We all know they actually worked together at the beginning.
Yeah.
And in Japan, it's a little different. And I learned this from the Tamron guys because I went on one of the Tamron. I was a platinum member at Tamron at one point and went on a trip with those guys, and I got to meet the top brass at Tamron in the US. And they were talking to me and telling me like there's this really big misconception in America, especially on the internet, about rivalry between these companies.
There
Like
isn't.
everyone here hates each other. Like, you're a
They're
Canon
buddy
guy,
buddies.
you know?
No,
And in Japan, they all go to lunch together and
yeah,
hang out.
yeah.
They're
It's
like
more
pals.
important. Yeah, from the
Yeah, like,
Japanese
we do the
perspective,
same
it's
thing,
more
but
important
at
for
the end,
all
we
to
do it at the
succeed.
end.
Yes.
But it's funny because they all know what they're each doing. Like,
Right.
it's not as like the reason why Canon and Nikon can respond to each other like tit for tat over the years
Yeah.
is because they're all at lunch together and they actually do talk to each other about what's coming.
I know. I know. Yeah.
They don't
A lot
really
of people
want.
don't
They don't
believe
want
that either.
Canon does not want Nikon to go out of business, nor does
Right.
Nikon want Canon to go out of business,
Right.
nor Sony. On
Right.
like for any and nor does Sony want Nikon to go out of business.
I would be upset if Sony puts up and throws the towel up on the email like they did on the email. I'm going to be pissed because you know what? Canon and Nikon are going to go back to being the old bricks, and then you will get whatever you're going to be at their mercy. And that's happened before. And
But I think it will happen.
just
I think it will happen, Amar. I was going to bring this up before. I didn't have a chance. One of the interesting things to note is that cameras are dominant. Like over this is historical. People can argue things change. Historically, the mount is what dictates and drives the camera system.
Mhm.
And it's very clear that in like 86 or 87, or whenever it was that EOS came out, that's
87.
what shifted.
Yes.
What year was it?
87.
Yeah, so 87, that's the year that Canon started to dominate over Nikon. Like that was the beginning of that
The
domination.
only thing that killed Nikon to compete in that level was that screw mount nonsense that they
Well,
wanted.
because they couldn't, but Amar, they couldn't change the F mount in a way.
Well, they had the drives inside the cameras rather than the lenses, so
Yeah, the
the
lenses.
batteries were
Yeah.
going down fast. I mean, I
Right.
still remember people used to complain shooting alongside.
But-
You would hear all that out of their
But
lenses.
what happened was, if I recall, Minolta came out with an AF system.
Correct.
Okay?
The
And
Maxim
Minolta-
series.
And I remember because I was in photography class in high school,
Yeah,
Maxim.
and we were all manually
it was
focused.
incredible, right?
What? Yeah,
That was
and so-
incredible.
yeah, and then the Minolta came out, and that was cheating. Like the photography teacher's like, you can't use that camera. That's not real photography.
Yeah, you got to have an older camera.
You're cheating.
No, it's like you have to focus manually because that's
And that,
bullshit.
and that mindset exists today in the Nikon.
But I'm just
Go
saying
ahead,
that
go
was
ahead, go
out
ahead.
there. Now
Yeah.
it's a standard thing, like it's a joke. But my point is, everybody tried to match AF at that point. Everyone's like, oh my God, we need to make an AF camera, right? And Canon decided to change their mount. They took a huge gamble
Mhm.
because at the time they had a lot of user base on their old mount, and they were like, are we going to lose all of our customers? And they said, we're going to take a shot and we're going to make a new mount. It's electric. It's an electronic mount that can communicate with the camera and create great autofocus. Nikon took a different road. Nikon said, we're not going to change the F mount. We've had it since 1959. We're a backwards compatible company. We're
Yep.
not changing our mount. So here you go, engineers. You're hamstrung. You got an arm tied behind your back. I want you to take this old mount and somehow make it autofocus.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when they came up
They
with the
jerry-rigged
screw
it.
drive. Okay?
Yep.
They had no other alternative, but it was a gamble. They didn't want to lose their clients. Canon made the gamble the other way, and it paid off. Canon made the right choice. Nikon should
They made
have
another
done that.
gamble, which was this. You remember this gamble? This is
I
the
can't-
EOS 3. This is the
Yeah.
3. So
I remember that.
now they have the R3.
Right.
Guess what it has in there back in the
Eye-
day?
It has eye detect for moving
Eye
your eye.
detect. It could see your freaking retina back then, and it would autofocus wherever your eye was looking. And
Right.
they brought that back today. So when people tell me, "Oh, Canon cripples everything," no, they don't. You think
No.
Sony innovates stuff? You just give them another 5 years, and you're gonna know what they're able to do, what Nikon and Canon can really do,
But
because
what I
they're
wanted to-
incredible at what they
I
can do.
agree. I agree. What I wanted to address was this. You said something about the E mount. I think Sony made a mistake when
They should have made it bigger.
They made a mistake because they took an APS-C mount and they jammed a full frame sensor
It was
into
an
it.
NEX mount.
Yep. And that was a mistake because it's going to bite them in the ass down the road. Because what's
Right.
going to happen is now that Canon and Nikon have both revamped the mount,
Right.
Canon and Nikon are just beginning to be able to explore what they can do with
Correct.
lens tech, with optics.
Yeah,
going
they're already
forward.
making better lenses.
They can
because
make
of the
lighter
mount.
And
lenses.
Sony
faster.
cannot compete with that, no matter what their marketing department says. And people always say, oh, that's not true. They make 1.2 lenses and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they made 1.2 lenses.
But how many 1.2 lenses do they have?
Well, they have
one.
I mean, they got the 50,
And then the 50, and then they have the 50.
But my point is, that's just you're thinking in today's terms. Like, what's coming out tomorrow that will make it take advantage of like a Z mount that the E mount just physically can't do. So what'll happen is Sony will be forced to either become inferior optically, or they'll have to change their mount.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they change their mount, they're back at the base.
Yeah.
It's just like, so actually Sony has problems that like they
had a good mount. I mean, Baron, they had a freaking good, the A mount was perfectly fine. They didn't need to do this. Right.
But they weren't a camera company. They were a consumer electronics company making cameras.
That was their actual camera division. And they let like the A99 II cameras go. If you guys have never tried it, Chuck, come as a Nikon person, you would be in love with that camera, man. If you grabbed it, it was one of the best built DSLRs better than anything Nikon or Canon I've ever touched. Incredible camera, but it went by the wayside.
And I love the Z mount because the Z mount as we stand currently, you can theoretically adapt any other lens to the Z mount.
Yeah.
You could adapt RF lenses to the Z mount. You can't.
Look how big this mount is.
Yeah.
This is the APS-C sensor in there, but look how big that freaking mount is. It's the whole camera, top to bottom.
Yep. Well, it's 54. It's a Canon's 54 millimeters across, and then the Z is 55 millimeters across.
Right. It's even bigger.
It's even bigger. And the Z has the 16 millimeter flange distance. That's the one thing it's 20 millimeters on the Canon RF,
Canon 20, yeah.
Which is why Canon RF cannot use Z lenses, but Z could theoretically use Canon RF lenses.
Yeah.
So
does it work? Does that work? Have you tried it?
No, it doesn't work yet because there's no adapter, but it theoretically can work. Someone has to make the adapter.
We need to talk to Albert. We need to get Albert in here, Chuck.
Yeah, I know. He's ready. He's ready to come on too.
The Z mount already adapts EF lenses right now.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Right. But it could do RF too. It just someone has to make that.
Yeah. That would be awesome. I'm in. That's it.
And I can tell you something else. I really like Nikon NEF files are incredible. And I have compared, like, I can't speak across the board. And I think, Amar, you would know way more about this than I do because you're a Canon guy. Because I'm only really familiar with R6 files.
Yeah.
So I'm not really familiar with R5 files and, R3 files and all that. But I can tell you right now, and I'm just saying this like respectfully, because I think the R6 is a great camera. And in many ways, it's better than the Z6 II, certainly for autofocus. But I think the Z6 II files are just better than the R6 files.
Nikon's always had a better raw file, and I'm not ashamed to say it here because I think it is what it is, right? I mean, I've seen what those files can do and how far you can push them, and it's a lot to do with it's not about who makes the sensor. So yes, Sony has the base layer sensor. So what? It is what they're doing with that processing out of that sensor. I think Sony should be ashamed in some respects, right? Sony sensor technology is incredible. Absolutely freaking incredible. It's one of the best in the world, period. There's nothing better. And if they put it into Canon, like I've said before, I'll be the first one jumping up in joy because I know what it can do and how far I can push this 61 megapixel sensor. I can. Now, is it going to be as good as what I would get out of a Z9 and as polished out of an R3 or something? No. Because those upper echelon cameras, that was the other thing, Chuck, that me and you talked about a while back. But I don't think we talked to Baron about when they start crippling things and lowering the prices of cameras, like from a Z9 to like a Z8. I will bet you that the color engine that they have, you are not going to get that in the cheaper cameras without paying the price. They won't give you the same file structure because I've seen like NEF files from 3300 series cameras all the way up to all the different layers of Nikon. It gets better and better and better. And when I used to look at the D5 files, D4 files, D3 files, they were incredible compared to some of they're like a D700 file. They're very different. Though they both are raw, they're not the same.
Hey guys, I hate to interrupt. Man, I would love to. This is one of those. This could have been a marathon live stream. Went from rant to education, and I mean, when I say education, you guys educating me and look at some things a little bit differently. But man, Baron, thanks for coming on, brother.
Oh,
You
thanks.
need
Yeah.
you need to come back again more.
Yeah, I'd love to. I just saw you. I saw you were on today, and I had some time, and I was just like, I didn't know. I just saw it. I clicked on. I'm like, I got some time today. If you
No,
want me, I'll come on.
absolutely appreciate it, man. I'm glad you did. And Amar, thanks for being in here.
Absolutely.
And
And
Mr.
Jeffrey, you're
Jeffrey,
coming, right? You're coming. So the invitation's open. You let me know when. Let's get your channel the visibility that it needs. You come out there and actually share sort of what you're doing. Because I love watching your videos. It just calms me like no tomorrow, right? If I'm about to rant, I put on Jeffrey video and just watch those birds, man. I'm good to go.
Mind if I ask 2 quick questions, or one comment and one question? Question for Baron. Do you think that there is room for a Z6 II and a Z7 II, or should Nikon drop one of those?
You mean the 3, right?
The 3, yeah. Should they drop one due to, let's just say, their ability to manufacture multiple
I mean,
bodies
if I
at one
had to make
time?
a decision, it depends. If I'm Nikon, there's 2 scenarios. If I had tons of money and didn't care, I would keep it, and I have a sense of how that would differentiate. But if I do care and I want to worry about having a Z90 and a Z8 as well, which I do think are 2 critical cameras, yeah, I would consider getting rid of Z7 III. I'd make the Z6 III 36 megapixels, call it a day. Because nobody that's plenty of resolution for the all-around camera.
Yeah.
hey,
Well,
hey,
and the only other comment I wanted to make that was kind of tying into some of the things you were saying is, I know everybody, and myself included, I'm disappointed, that we haven't had any announcements or any development announcements or any kind of announcements at all. But the one thing is, I would rather wait a little bit longer, because if they rush it and it has a problem, they're going to pay an awful price for that. They have to make sure that the camera is perfect before they throw it out there. So although I may want one now, I would rather wait 3 or 4 months. If the difference is you're going to slap something out there to make people happy, and it has problems, and you got to have all sorts of bug fixes and firmware fixes, or bring it back to get this fixed or that fixed, it ain't worth it. It'll cost
well,
you.
I think that's assuming that it hasn't been in development
Yeah.
for long.
But just
And
to
I
be
think
clear,
that they
though,
have been. Go ahead.
Nikon's reputation is that they put out finished products. That's actually one of the things that they're known for, and I appreciate. And apparently, this last Z9 3.0 update has some bugs in it that are like coming up already. So it tells me that they are rushed. Like, I think they rushed that firmware out to have something to come out with on October 26th. And that's unfortunate because that's not their style. Like, I don't want to see that start happening.
Well, that sounds like something Sony did for a long time. They just threw crap over there, and then we'll keep on fixing with firmware updates. I hope they don't go down that path.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I think that they won't with the cameras. Like, I think that if a Z6 III comes out in Q1 and it's matching or surpassing expectations, first of all, at that point, everyone's going to be happy. Like as soon as it comes out, all the angst goes away, right? It's like, oh, well, now it's here, so I'm happy now.
Yeah.
So first of all, they'll be happy, but I won't be happy if it comes out and I'm like, this sucks. It's not better than my Z6 II in the low light situation, right? Like, if that happens, I'm not happy. Yeah. So I want it to come out and be good rather than just get it out the door.
Yeah.
And I think that's Nikon's. I think Nikon, unlike Sony and Canon to a little lesser extent, is not going to just get it out the door. They need to be the company that's a little slower, but a little more methodical, a little more targeted. And so what they do is like on par, because I'll tell you right now, like, if the Z system can get to the point where everyone can agree that the autofocus is competitive with Canon and Sony, and it's close now, by the way, it's close.
I agree.
It's still not as good. It's very close.
I agree.
But if you can get it just as good, like where anyone could say that, no one can really deny it.
You just have to tie it, not beat it.
Right. If they can
Yep.
tie it, but they can tie it definitively.
And this is something that Long Rider, that you guys know, used to say all the time. It's like Canon and Nikon, they just have to tie Sony. They don't have to even beat them, right? Because the following is so big, right?
Well,
and if they're that good.
and because they are beating them in so many other ways. The problem is we're focusing on the way that they don't because it's a big deal, right? So AF is a big deal because everybody relies on AF. That's like everybody uses AF. Not everybody uses pixel shift.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
one of those
yeah, yeah.
features. It's one of those features that everybody uses.
Yeah,
Every
you-
person who picks the
Focus
camera.
stacking and all that other stuff.
Right. So to me, if they can just tie there, but it's a definitive tie. It's a tie that no one can deny. Now you got a camera system that's got arguably the best raw files, certainly among the best lenses,
Yep.
certainly among the best build quality, if not the best build quality. Like to me, Nikon is poised to have a system that is and they can adapt anybody's lenses.
Yeah.
So to me, you get that system going, and it's actually, it could be a number one system again. Now, I don't know that it would be in sales because that's a whole different animal. It's not about quality. Sales are about marketing and about how much money you have
Yes.
behind you,
Yes.
right? But as far as the quality, as far as saying, do I like this camera better than this camera? Would I rather have that than that? For those that know, there's no reason Nikon can't again be, that's the best camera. It's a Nikon.
Hey, I got to run because I know my brother's out there waiting for me.
All right. Hey, Chuck, before you go, I just want to say thank you very much for having me, and I very much appreciate you.
No, hey, thank you very much for coming on the show. Great panel. I'd even suggest tomorrow night, if you're not busy and you want to step in, let us know. We're gonna talk about the firmware 3.0. And now that you brought up that there are some bugs, I noticed there are some people that are having trouble uploading this new firmware. But anyway, if you want to participate tomorrow night, by all means, just jump in the chat and let me know. I haven't uploaded the new firmware for my Z9, and I'm hoping that everybody's going to actually teach me what's good and what's new in that new firmware update.
You might want to check out, if you guys don't check this out, this is the last thing I'll say. I know you have to go, but this is kind of important.
Yeah.
I would say important, that's relative, but check out, do you guys look at the channel, but not the channel, excuse me, the website, Z System User?
Okay.
Yeah, they published a supplemental guide for the firmware.
Well, so his name is Tom Hogan.
Oh yeah.
And he knows a ton about Nikon, and
we know Tom.
He's always over at Paul's Photo. I go there all the time, or a lot. And anyway, he talks about the Z9 firmware and what the bugs are. It's on one of his recent articles there.
So let me ask you, I haven't read the latest, but somebody was mentioning him and saying that he's anticipating an earlier update to the Z9, i.e. Z9 to Z9S.
Yeah, he talked about originally, he said that he expected it before the 2024 Paris Olympics.
Yeah.
But now he thinks it might be in 2023 and he gives a bunch of reasons why. And he's kind of an insider, but not really. Like he is
kind of, but not really. Right. And I don't always agree with him, but
he knows a lot of the insiders, but he said it himself that since the pandemic happened, a lot of the Nikon camp has been super quiet. So unlike prior years where he would get more leaks, like he's not hearing quite as much. And the pandemic kind of just ended in Japan very recently. Like they just very recently opened it up, I guess, where it's kind of back to business as usual. So I think, I don't really know. He said the Z9 too, he says before anyone gets upset, it's more like an S version.
Right.
So it's not going to be like massive update. It's going to be like a minor kind of improvement.
Right.
So, but I don't know anything about that. And I'd be like, to me, I don't know why they're worried about that. To me, fix it in firmware and get the other cameras out.
Yeah.
Like that's because the Z9 is very competent from all indications. So.
All right, brother, it's been a pleasure having you in here, man. And again, maybe tomorrow night, I'll send a link. I usually do this for people. I'll send the link out. It doesn't mean anybody has to be, is obligated to come or whatever, but if you want to join, it'll be there. And, but I do appreciate the education today too. And I think it's been great for the audience. Brian, Where's Six String Brian at? He's a Sony shooter. He said, I'm going shopping for a Z9 now.
It's a dangerous channel to watch because as Huff Photo says, he's already spent money because of this channel. So watch out.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, Chuck, I probably won't make it on Saturday because that's the only time I get to see my girlfriend is on the weekend. But
yeah, man.
On the weekday, one, that's possible. So let me know. Keep me informed.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I'll send the link out, and I know that people can make it. Sometimes they can't or whatever, but it'll be there. So no pressure, but love to have you back in here again.
Thank you.
So guys, for Baron and Jeffrey, I actually put my number in the private chat for you guys. So you guys.
Yeah. Let me give it to you.
And the email.
Yeah, I'll give you mine too.
Is this going to close down when you shut down? I guess it is, right? When you shut it down, Chuck?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll write back to you, Amar.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, just grab it from there.
Yep, I got it. Thank you, sir.
Yep. What lens mount? You got to answer this question real quick. What lens mount is used for the Z9? It's the new Z mount.
It's the EFZ. It's the Sony Z mount. We're giving you a hard time, Brian. It's called the Z mount.
But as Baron was saying, just about any lens, at least any that we know of, there's an adapter, and it can be adapted to the new Z mount.
Well, it can't be the RF can't be adapted yet because they haven't made that adapter. But here's the criteria: as long as the flange distance is shorter on the Z, than it is on whatever other system, they can adapt it.
You can even put a Pentax lens on there, by the way. I saw someone using a Pentax lens on his Z camera.
Hey, there's good Pentax lenses from the old days.
Yeah.
And I had a 67.
The autofocus one works too.
I've got Albert Jimenez, he's got 80 different adapters.
We got to get
probably using a projection lens on his.
To include projection lenses that he's adapted now to all cameras. But anyway,
it does, man. The guy's
he's obsessed.
Again, it was a pleasure for those that didn't tune in because it was a rant video or a rant live stream. They missed out, at least here in the end. But again, thanks to all of you. And I got to get moving here.
All right, Chuck, you take care of your blood pressure. It's looking good.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Talk to everybody later.
Take care, guys. Tomorrow I'll be giving you a call or an email soon.
Yeah, just text me.